Chris.
Lower fans.
We're here to talk about the baddest beakies this side of Corpse Grin. Let's take a look at the toughest beakies our boys have had to scrap with this last weekend. We'll take a look at a few of our most challenging nemesis, challenging matchups, and how we do at the top levels of competition. And we'll give you some feedback and ways that we could possibly combat these beakies and golden beakies, to be specific in some cases.
Extra golden.
And overall, just take a look at how we're doing. As it looks as a whole, if it works as a whole, it's good, but we're really going to look at some guys that maybe give us problems, or just particularly some lists that might give us problems, some really competitive lists as a whole. So welcome, everybody. I'm here with Chris Tech Lord. Chris Tech has been playing a lot of competitive games, a lot of RTTs. So he's just faced up head-on with a lot of these armies, and he'll give some direct feedback, not just talking about the list, right? Because he's faced every single one of these armies we've talked about. And we're actually going to go over something he's played last, because believe it or not, one of the armies he plays is one of our matchups, even though they don't even do good at competitive level. Because mind you guys, we're not just talking about at the highest levels of competition. That's one factor, but we're talking about all of 40K stats across the board, how Orks are doing. And surprisingly, they do have some odd matchups to look at. So let's take a look. Let's look at these chats real quick. Chris, you want to read a chat real quick? That way we can catch up so we're not behind and saying hello to all the boys.
Well, obviously, we got to start with the giant WAAAGH. We got John back and beat on the WAAAGH. We got Dominic saying he's looking forward to this. We got Blake saying he's looking forward to this. And
let's go.
Of course, you got OG Channel Pony saying,
let's go, Channel Pony, my knob, my favorite little knob. Oh, coming up.
Welcome, everyone.
Welcome, everybody. And today, you guys, I'm actually playing as the mech. Let's go. David's on the side, so if we have any technical difficulties, it's my fault momentarily, because we're practicing so that I can do this more often on my own and not always need David's tech experience here. So, like I said, to reiterate, guys, we're just going to talk about some of what I decided are some hard kind of matchups or lists that Orks have had to face into, and we'll take a look at how the Orks also did this last weekend at some of these biggest tournaments. Hello, Wade. Say hello to Wade as well. All right, and just so you guys get a look at, just as a summary, the six, 7 armies that we're going to take a look at are going with number 1 is the Golden Boys. So Orks have played 77 games into the Golden Boys this last week, and we had only 25% win rate. All right, so out of 77 games, 25% win rate. So we're taking it from the boys, just the Golden Beakies, just like everybody else. Now, from the Metal Gits, out of 83 games, we're at a 27% win rate. So even then, we are still having a hard time against the Metal Gits, huh? Pointy Ears, out of 76 games, we're having a 46% win rate. So it's actually not that bad. But once you look at the top levels of play, you realize it is that bad. All right. So that's more of a list by list thing, which is good for us, because that means we're not always just eating dirt playing those guys, right? The next one are the Big Metal Beakies, talking about the Knights. We actually do decent into Knights. Out of 43 games, we have 64% win rate. Talking about Imperial Knights. Even Chaos Knights, we do even better against. But we will still discuss them, because there are some lists that do really well, and I think some Ork lists that just get punished for playing against them. T-Sun, surprisingly, T-Suns out of 21 games, Orks are only at a 28% win rate this last week. A little surprising in my head, but Christian said he can understand why. And then last but not least, which surprised me and made Christian laugh a little, was World Eaters. So World Eaters, out of 22 games, Orks are at a 27% win rate against World Eaters. You think about kind of some of their tricks and everything, you can understand why. And also how Chris actually uses them and the couple units he uses, I think even makes that matchup even harder. So that being said, what we're going to do, guys, is I'm going to just take a look at how the best Golden Boys army did. We'll discuss what they do, and then we'll directly translate that to how it would look against Orks and why Orks are having a hard time against that. Give some pointers as to how those we can use some tools against that, or if it's really just, hey, do best you can and hope the mission's in your favor and drawing cards, right? Sometimes that's a little that's going to be one of the answers with Gene Stealers sometimes. But even on paper, we do good against Gene Stealers. I'm talking about top level competition, guys, right? There's a major difference between how everybody else is playing 40K and how the guys at the very top 1 to 5% of playing. So don't ever get discouraged when we look at these numbers and go, oh, I gotta follow this meticulous way. No, you don't. No, you don't. Because catching people off guard is really how you play as Orks, all right?
And I think a big thing with the list too is you gotta understand, like, this is the people who have like optimized this list and they've gotten really like plenty of games with this list. So even if you see this specific list, don't like feel so discouraged, because the captain, like the pilot of the list, is just as important as the actual list itself. Also
remember, these people most likely knew who was in the end of the tournament they were at. So yeah, and then we'll also talk about how the best Ork list did at this event as well. So one of the Ork lists did really good at the Open, I believe. Was the Open? Not Tacoma, but which one is this? It was the Super Major.
Show Me Showdown.
Yeah, the Show Me Showdown. So our player did good there. So we'll look at his list as well, guys. Don't worry about it. So here's the first Custodes list, guys. I don't know if you guys you personally have all looked at it, but we're going to directly talk about how this would be definitely difficult for an Ork to play regardless of position. So Chris, if you want to go through and read the list as we go, and then at the end we'll continue.
Yeah, we got two captains who are primarily there for their free strat each turn. One has the Sleaze's Hunter trait. We got Trajan Valoris, for his potential 5 first, potential double attacks, just crazy utility. We got 3 big breaks of guard, and those guys are T6, 3 wounds, basically super terminators, and they have crazy enough 5 attacks with strength 7 -2, 2 damage. That's crazy efficiency. Nothing in melee is that efficient, especially for that points cost.
Not including their data sheet capabilities and their strats. We're going to go over that real quickly, guys, because some of those strats do directly translate to why Orks have a very hard time against them. It's not just that they're a golden boy, right? But these 3 big brick units, this is actually pretty common to see at least 2 of these big bricks running around the battlefield, if not more.
Yeah, I think the one thing people of Custodes have been like debating internally is, do they bring the 3 big bricks, or do they bring 1 or 2 big bricks and they have the wardens for that field of pain access? What we've seen is just having a 10-man squad with just the utility and the efficiency on strats is just over the top versus that 6-man with the field of pain.
Yeah, or they thought about bringing the Gravis tanks as well. Sometimes you'll see those in Custodes matchups too, if they don't bring just spamming Guardian. So keep that in mind. They do have somewhat reliable firepower as well that they like to tap into, but in this list they didn't. They have the prosecutors. This is the rest of their list is for scoring essentially. Right here, right?
Yeah. So the big thing is to look at this list is the Callous Assassin. Her big thing is she has the fact to make 1 CP cost another amount. And I've seen that more and more common in all top lists is you see people wanting to spam Overwatch, you see people want to spam the 1 CP strat from their army, and having a utility of this is probably the biggest utility I've seen in 10th edition so far as a whole, just because CP is so rampant right now. It also makes so that if you have a strat go down to 0 CP, it brings it back up to 1. So it doesn't let them get that free utility when they might enter a phase with 1 CP.
And remember, we're Orks, so we don't even have that, right? Translates it directly to what Orks are dealing with. If you start looking at our strats and saying, I'm going to put another AP cost on that, when our strats are already very vital to us, we don't get free access to strats like these other armies do. Every time you go into the game, you're thinking about, how am I actually going to use this? I need to fight in death here. I need to get this strat here going off. CP management for Orks is gigantic as an Ork player, and some of these competitive lists are starting to add that even more. Not just base armies like Tyranids that do it passively.
Yeah, 3 CP fight on death is just backbreaking for an army. That can cripple your whole turn. Or 2 CP that toughness means you can't spam it in 1-5 phase, 1 in the shooting phase. You're gonna have to choose one or the other, and that can be really crucial.
And this is directly translating to how we would want to defeat Custodes, or at least put up a really hard fight against them, would be fighting in death, correct? Or exploding 5s, right? This guy puts a problem on that. If the enemy player looks at us and go, oh, I don't like your toughness, even though generally that's not going to be an issue for the Custodes either, as they have access to ways to kind of passively ignore your toughness. What they would end up doing is really trying to hamper our fighting in death. Armies like these and other units will go against, factions will look up against. They want to look at our strat for fighting in death as our main tool against them. That hinders us right there. And you'll see now that this guy used it, it'll be more common. And other armies use it as well, right? So this guy was just coming up here. You can imagine with this army, walking up to the middle of the table. If you're an Ork player, you would imagine this. These 3 bricks walk up to the middle of the table. They stand on the objectives. They get full rerolls to wound. They get access to strats that reduce damage by 1, right? So we run in there as Ork players either with the volume of -1 AP and 1 damage, or volume of -1 or 2 AP with just 2 damage. We don't really have a lot of damage 3 in the game. We really don't have damage 4 besides gas, right? And the Custodes love hearing that because they're going to stand an objective already as it is to get their passive data sheet abilities, not including the strat abilities that they're going to get there, right? Not including their katas. So they know that we're going to come in there and do melee into them.
-1 to hit.
Immediately, they're going to do -1 to hit, guys. We're already hitting on 4s with some of our most reliable art units. We're already giving them the War Boss, the Naban Smasher Squig. We're trying to negate that as it is. And like I said, we're going to go, oh, exploding 5s. Well, what if he goes, never mind, I don't want to use that for the rest of the game or make it cost you an arm and a leg, 2 CP, fighting a death, 3 CP. Oh.
One thing to consider when looking at these specific lists from the Tacoma Open is these guys use a GW terrain layout, which is actually pretty favorable for melee armies like Orks potentially, because there's very limited, extremely long sidelines. You can play around most of those sidelines in that game, and I think that just shows the melee army winning it all in a very shooting heavy meta that there's potential. And I honestly recommend using like GW to balance around. And it's probably the most balanced terrain layout there is right now on the table.
Yeah, so in the future, guys, so don't hold it to your heart if you played up against them. They're just hard for everybody to beat right now. As for how Orks beat them, in my opinion, or hopefully, right? This is if you're playing with them at home and your personal level. Maybe you can only play against an Ork Custodes player a lot, or there's a group of people and they all play them and you just want to keep playing. It's not that you're tailoring against them. You're just adjusting so that you can actually fit into what your local metal is. That's what I'm talking about. Don't tailor to one person, but you can understand your local meta. Why do I say that? Because that's exactly what competitive players do. They know who's coming to the event. They know what to bring, and then they're adjusting how their whole overall army outlook goes when they approach the meta. So you want to do that as well. So don't look at this and go, I have to go against this Custodes. No. Think about how you're going to go against your local meta's Custodes was. Most of the time, people are going to be running these bricks, right? So what would you do against that, guys, right? 1, MSU scoring can be a way to go, right? As it's always a way to go. You pretty much challenging the opponent. Do you have enough ways to initiate combat into me to kill me as I try to take over the board? And I'm going to be trading with you either in fighting and death or my few scalpel units, right? What units directly do good into Custodes? 1 would be Killicans. Both sides of their data sheet and profile are looking at damage 3. You also need and want that shooting now because there's not really going into combat with these guys. They have a strat to also fight first. So it's not even just an ability on one of their data sheets.
Yeah, and damage 3 is super critical, but don't forget, any army that has access to Storm Shield has access to +1 wound on a model. So you'll see 4 damage, 4 wound Terminators. You'll see 4 wound Custodian Guard with a Presidium Shield.
Right here.
So what you might want to do too when you attack these is maybe you want to flick a wound off or make him take a save on a guy, so you know who's going to take that save, so you can save your rockets for when you get that guy down to 3 wounds, so you don't waste the whole 3 damage weapon.
Because we already discussed that they can reduce damage by 1 while they're standing on an objective. So now you're putting the Presidium Shield in here. They're like, sure, bring that damage 1 because they're turning all your damage 2 into damage 1. You're going to just unload everything into them and fighting, maybe even fighting in death. And what are you going to get out of it? Kill one of their guys, maybe? Right? What are you really going to get? That's not if their character doesn't just annihilate you on his own, right?
And they're likely fighting first because they're using that strat where they're on an OBJ. They're hitting you before you even hit them.
Yeah.
So whatever output you think is going into that unit, just cut it in half.
For sure. That's what they're. So keep that in mind. So don't think I'm just going to hit them with the same old beast snag of boys and do that because they're also -1 to hit. Now, what units are going to work? Killican still, in my opinion, can do work because you want the rockets. They're a little bit more accurate. And when they do come and fight, even if they're -1, you're putting 3 damage in. Still going to help. But really, another unit that's a sleeper unit, possibly the Flash Kids. Flash Kids coming in with the nice strength up in there against some of those matchups. Damage 2, but in volume could possibly work because, like Christian said, if they're coming on Presidium Shields, you got to start tearing these guys down before you even start hitting them. So volume is always the answer when you're going against some elite armies with great saves. You just can't get around it sometimes as an Ork player. You're trying to put some very, very high value shots into them, maybe mech guns that could just whiff completely on 1 turn. They put an info and say, bah, oops.
Yeah, one thing I think we gotta appreciate as Ork players is that we can get to strength 6 super easily. And 6 is probably the greatest breakpoint in 10th edition compared to strength 5 and 9 because everything has that 1 extra bit of toughness little bit tougher. So getting able to strength 6 is a great number, especially for like tough infantry units.
And that being said, another unit that I would like to bring in to the table, guys, and you might be tired of hearing me, but I'm gonna say it again: the noms. But hear me out on this with the big choppas, right, Christian? With the big choppas, because the big choppas are at strength 7, is it not? I believe it's
on the WAAAGH, it might be strength 7.
No, I think it's strength 7 base, and then on the WAAAGH it's 8, and that matters when you're going against Custodes as their T6, right? They're already going to be -1 and making you -1 to hit. So going in there with a profile that's already hitting on 4s is not going to help you. You have the War Boss, so you have the War Boss in there, the big choppas, so still hitting on 3s. You can still be exploding 5s. You're looking for volume. As I said, the volume is the way that you're going to get away from this, right? You're going to try to ignore all of these stacking durability buffs and just hope that your volume on your roll saves good does help you. And that's always an answer, guys, as an Orc player. And the rockets, as we discussed, is going to be another way. We can look and tap into our mortal wound potential, but keep in mind that they do have a 4-up feel no pain and mortal wounds, so don't ever ignore that as well, right? And then I was just going to take a second to say hello to chat. Whoa, what's up, Bruce? Artemis, Steve, what's up? Don't worry, I see you guys in chat. Feel free to give feedback on anything we're saying in your own personal games, which in some ways you've had to come initiate them. I mean, you've had to come and fight the Custodes and how you've had to deal with them. Let us know how you personally feel about it as well. Another way that I've seen people deal with it as Orcs when you go on MSU, fill up the objective or get near the objective, station your units there, but don't be throwing away your units by charging every turn. If you're not going to kill them. Make them take this chance of jumping in with the heroic interventions. Make them utilize their actual abilities to initiate combat with you, and don't give them free giveaways on kills, right? If you know you're not going to kill them, don't just go charge into them, give them a free kill, throw the unit away. Make them actually on their turn, activate that unit, go out and get you, go out and actually do the rolls, hope that you have an OC left. And if not, you have a small unit that can maybe get past them and start scoring in their backfield, some of the secondaries or different corners of the table. You just keep playing and controlling that rate of attrition always.
Yeah, I think the one thing Eddie mentioned right there that was really important was the secondary game. These guys have 5 units on the table, basically, so if you can pick up units that will help them score the secondaries, you might just win the game of attrition. They might have 1,200 points left on the board, but you can still outscore them if you can score the secondaries in specific parts of the board. The secondaries in 10th edition really allow you to make you want to be mobile. So we come up against a list like this, you want to look at that assassin, you want to look at those exaction squads, and you want to make those priorities because those guys will get 10, 12 secondary points a game between all of them, and that could be the difference between winning and losing.
Stormboys go out there any turn, advance and charge, and to try to get those guys, attack them, get those bricks to try running out to the peripherals of the battlefield. Remember, you already know where he's going to end up with these bricks. He's just going to go stand on the objectives. So when you approach the battlefield with the Orc Custodes player, it's always about controlling your rate of attrition. But remember, these guys are elite. Therefore, the units can only activate so many times, and they can only get so many targetings in. So you're not going to throw them away every turn. Oh, man, I know this guy's going to kill me. But I'm going to charge anyways because I'm frustrated. No, dude, make him go out and try to actually get that unit. Make him actually roll it out. Make him actually try to get into combat with it. If you can't, oh well. What is he going to do? There's ways that you can actually deal with this, guys. Don't be scared to think outside the box and play patiently. Play the long game, right? And then, of course, Artemis Steve wants to say Death Dreads. Yes, Death Dreads in this case might actually work. Not always ideally. I know they're a little expensive. I'm still going to stick to that. I've said that before. The damage 3 AP is going to help you. I will say that Custodes can tear down the Death Dreads pretty reliably.
Yeah, if I'm looking for rockets, my sources are usually Grot Tanks or Killer Cans.
And he's looking for, but he's talking about for melee profile.
Oh, for melee?
And I get it, but as we talked about, they're going to have a lot of durability stacking. So I like to look at units that are going to come in with both profiles, right? Because here's the thing about the Flash hits as well, guys, is they can fight. Flash hits get at least 4 attacks. I think they're outrageous like that. They get 4 base attacks when I was looking at it, and because they're just knobs. They're just knobs with choppers. So don't ever forget that Flash hits can actually fight. That's what I mean. I'm looking for units that have multi-purpose. They're going to be putting both phases into the Custodes because you can't rely on just going in there with a single phase combat unit necessarily against the Banana Boys. They want that. They want to trade with you. They want you to put it on your turn. They want to beat you up, and if any of you's left, they finish you off on their turn and walk away.
Yeah, and the last thing I want to mention with Custodes is Eddie mentioned they only have a certain amount of activations a turn, maybe 5 activations. So just bring all those trucks, and if they use all the activations to kill 3 trucks, 4 trucks, that's fine because that's nothing. You're trading getting 1,800 points of shooting for 200 points of just transport.
So Christian's always in the say trucks.
Trucks are MVP. Everyone knows trucks are the MVP of the Codex.
So. As a whole, though, I will say I believe Custodes are going to get a GW. I think they'll get a similar nerf as to their strats are probably going to end up costing more. That way they can't just always use them, but they get free strats, so I don't know how that's going to negate it either as much. They need to get another look at.
Yeah, so, Artemis Steven Chet said his first game against was Custodes, and he lost 79-96. Yeah, how'd that game go? Was it like what kind of list was he running? Custodes, was he running like was a variety list, try things out? Because it was the first game of 10-2, or was it him playing a bunch? I mean, like what kind of style is his list type?
Also, don't forget that they can bring their characters back too. All right, just talking about some of the strength points of Custodes before we move on to Necrons. Custodes have wound rerolls, ability to auto wound on 6s, make you -1 to hit as an orc player. So there's 2 ways they're ignoring your toughness, and they're also ignoring some of your melee potential. They have stratagems to fight first. They have stratagems while standing on objective to reduce damage by 1. So keep that in mind as an orc player as you're going in there with your damage 2 knobs, right? Obviously, they all have forward bend bones, so even getting up to -3 AP with those mega knobs isn't going to necessarily help you all the way. I would think Gaz could do okay, but I'm not necessarily sure as I haven't had to use him. And I do believe when you're fighting against them, as we've seen in competitive lists as orc players, is you want to get some shooting in your list as well. So try to soften them up with some high quality shooting. As an orc player, high quality shooting means volume with damage 2, or a lot of rockets with more than ballistic skill 5, right? So that's what we can offer as of now. And like I said, something I'm going to be looking into is knobs with big choppas, war boss, more war bosses on the list, more beast bosses, units that can fight with small skirmishing to completely annihilate him, or to really multi-charge, make him have to focus which models are fighting which of your other combat units. When you're fighting with all these MSU units, you have guys left over that can still fight. You can still win on OC potentially. And last but not least, if somehow you can introduce Battle Shock with either a Shock Attack Gun or your Death Dreads, because Custodes, their leadership isn't as amazing either. Okay, it's not that much higher than the Space Marines, and if you can do that, turn off their OC on one of their big Death Star bricks, you can swing the game a little bit there too. Now we're going to move on to another army, guys, that I said did actually well into Orks, is Necrons. Orks only have a 27% win rate into Necrons as a whole. In this last week, as Necron players are trying to figure out their stride, trying to figure out their lists. So we'll take a look at this guy. This guy actually did number 5 overall, so he did very well here. So take a look at this Necron list. And Christian plays Necron. For the last 3 editions, exquisitely, that's why I call him Chris Deckwood. So they afford some. Hello. You guys still be back here? We dropped something for a second.
Huh?
You guys went black.
Are we back
Black?
now?
Or?
Black.
Are we back now?
No.
Yes.
Are we back now?
Nope.
Show us on my screen. We're back.
Yeah.
Hello. Sorry, guys. At a moment, something dropped right there for a second. Like I said, we're dealing with this new tech increase. So, Christian, go over the list. I think they can still hear you. Can they still hear Christian? Or
Well,
no?
my camera's not.
We don't need your camera, Christian.
I guess I'm not important to look at.
You're not important to look at, Christian.
Still broken.
Thanks for having us back.
Can they hear Christian yet?
It's frozen.
On mine, it's not frozen.
Boom. All right, there's Christian. Are you back, Christian? Hello. Sorry, guys, that we lost it for a second. We had a hiccup there.
Okay. So this Necron list. So
Can you hear Christian, guys? Make sure everybody can hear Chris Tuck. Yeah, so Christian, go over this list real quick. We had a hiccup there and we pulled that up.
yeah. So it's the key thing is this relies on 3 different sets of characters. It relies on 2 different Hexmark destroyers, 2 different overlords, 2 technomancers, and then it has a Catan as speedy support. And so those characters, the overlord and the technomancers, they're supported by a reanimator, cryptothralls, and then 2 bricks of Lichguard.
Look at all these characters, you guys. Like we said, you know, one more thing I want to say, guys, real quick. Sorry for not to interrupt Christian. I take back my prior statements about not bringing a lot of characters. It's not that I'm saying I figured it out yet, but I'm starting to look at these lists that do have up to 5, 6 characters and 4 players, and nobody minds, because if someone does take a big thing and fix objectives, you don't mind that they don't get the additional CP and that they're capped on how many points they can really get. So don't be scared to use a lot of characters. Necron players are doing it already. So I take back my prior comments when I said that. Don't just do it because. I'm talking about there are lists in my head that you get 2 war bosses, 2 or 3 beast bosses, some kind of knob on a smasher squig, and then some kind of beast boss and squig sword. Get a lot of characters if you possibly could. But let's continue with this.
Yeah, but I mean, to add to Eddie's comment, the thing with tournament lists is they always trim the fat. And so these lists are as lean as possible. Sometimes being lean means using the same data sheet as efficiently as possible, and that includes characters.
Yeah, that doesn't mean you have to do it. Just look for something that's similar, guys. Like we said, whenever you're looking at these and reflect them on yourselves, we're not here to pretend we're hard of war. We're here to discuss how orcs are going to deal with the meta and the matchup. Remember, anybody you see that you play locally is either looking at a similar channel to this, or going to be looking at Olistic's tactics, or he's looking at some other channel that's telling him and showing him these top level lists and how they're doing. And some people just copy and paste. If you've ever gone to tournaments, you'll see people see an Art of War list and they're like, I'm going to use that list, right? So we're not telling you just use a copy and paste of anybody. We're showing you people are going to end up using this as their skeletal structure for how they want to build their list. Look out for these units. Look out for these data sheets. Look out for these combinations. Keep that in mind against orcs for us ourselves. We're not telling you this because we care about how they're doing. We're doing it because this is what they're going to use against us most likely.
They're going to come.
Some of these armies already do really good against us. So let's keep an eye on that. Remember, this is all perspective.
Yeah, so besides, like I mentioned, there's 2 giant Lichguard blobs, and then the fire support behind that is supported by 2 Doomsday Arcs and 6 heavy destroyers in 3 sets of 2, which I kind of think is actually interesting because I guess it's more for the maneuverability to get different angles, because 3 obviously might be exciting for the reanimation benefits, but just maybe giving those angles, maybe only exposing 2 to expect them to die instead of expecting 3 because of lethality might be the way to go. And then the final unit, like I mentioned, 2 sets of 10 Lichguard bricks for the shields, and then a quick unit of Tomb Blades for the pregame move, plus just easy early access to secondaries. So the way this list plays out,
Chris and I have done the math on this as to what happens if I run into you with my knobs, with a war boss, with power claws. It really doesn't work out that well. Even in our best scenarios, rolling it out a couple times, we lose. How many was it? 3 to 4, was it?
Yeah, you lose about 4 Lichguard.
And then they get to reanimate by the time it's your turn again. They're back, and they probably kill a couple of your guys too. That's with the war boss. That's with exploding unbridled carnage. So just keep that in mind that I've thought about that. I might think about using. This is why in my head I've started considering the big choppers. Right, if I can hit you on 2s. Unbridled carnage, get over that 100%, get over that 100% accuracy rate. I can help kind of mitigate some of these stacking durability buffs. And because making someone roll more dice, guys, is always an answer to solving. I mean, an answer to dealing with these units. Because regardless of what math says, dice are dice. Someone can roll 5 dice and just roll a bunch of 1s, 2s. It doesn't matter. So my idea as an orc player, and I've always found as answers, put more dice into people. That's why knobs with big choppers are starting to come into my head with war bosses. Even maybe each skirmishing with knobs instead of beast snaggers, right? So continue to Chris.
Yeah, so when looking at this list, I think the one thing the similarity shares with the Custodes list that we just went over is it has access to double overlords, which is just like having access to double shield captains, which means double access to free strats. Free strats is crazy in 10th edition, and this means you can't just decide on which weaker Lichguard blob to go after because they both have the same potential. So you might see in casual games, I'm going to have 1 super blob, and I'm going to push that forward. But lists like this create 2 super blobs, and you can never fully just outmaneuver them with movement because they can just decide, okay, this turn you're going to focus on this, I'm going to focus on my strats on this, and the next turn I'm going to be across the board, and then I might be able to do the strats, then the same thing again.
So what are some Necron weaknesses? Because I see they got these little hex marks. These are those Overwatch boys.
Yes. So those dudes are crazy because what you can do is those guys, their ability is if they are within 3 inches of a friendly unit, if you shoot that friendly unit, these guys get a free activation as if it was the Necron shooting phase, and they can shoot whatever they want within 18 inches with 6 shots, strength 6, AP2, 1 damage. And they do that every time you target. So say you have 4 shooting units that target the Lich Guard, each of those hex mark destroyers will activate 4 times. And they don't have to shoot at what shot the Lich Guard. They can shoot at whatever is within 18-inch range. So say you move your melee units within charge range 9 inches or 5 inches, whatever, and then you have decided you want to have your battle wagon pop some shots at the Lich Guard, or you want to have the truck with some flash kits pop some shots at the Lich Guard. The Hexmark take that and they basically reroute those shots back into the melee unit that was going to charge the Lich Guard, so you have less shots going into. So another thing with the hex marks is that they always overwatch at 2s, and they are one of the few units that gets away from that restriction of overwatch once per turn. So what they can do is double overwatch onto whatever is charging the Lich Guard, and then top it all off, they overwatch hitting at 2s. So they can activate unlimited in the shooting phase, and they double activate in the charge phase to whatever is charging the Lich Guard block.
This is how you see Necrons deal with Orc continuous momentum. As Orc players, you think innately, these guys are slow, I'm going to run up, get in their face, I'm going to hit them from all angles, create the horseshoe around them, like I like to say, right? You come around the flanks around them. You think in your head, I put all these different units into them, because I'm going to be able to kill them, I'm charging them with all these. What happened? As you've seen in, let's say 40K in 40 minutes battle report, right? We've seen those things happen before. What happens? As the player tries to move, the Necron player, oh, I'm going to overwatch you, get a couple kills here. Oh, you're going to charge this other unit? I'm going to overwatch you. I'm going to kill you here. Oh, you've charged me and you fight. I get to reanimate. Now I'm fighting you back. I'm killing you in my turn, your turn, my turn. Now it's back to my turn. You're gone already. Now I move forward again. These guys continue with the momentum. And Chris?
Yeah, John makes a good point. He mentions he's seen a version of that list. Did that version of the list have the double hex mark or just single or triple? Because you're right, it struggles to kill the MSU, and that hex mark helps solve that issue because the hex mark says if I kill a model, I get to make an extra shot with my gun. So I was wondering if that version of the list, how they apply the hex mark, because the hex mark should be the issue to those MSU hordes, but if they don't, or if you can outmaneuver them and maybe keep your hordes what needs to be shot by the hex mark outside of range, that's a good way to counter this.
As we were saying, on these tables, we're using a lot of there's a lot of dense terrain, dense tables. For this tournament specifically is the one that used the GW terrain, so we're keeping that in mind on all these lists, right? So he's using 3 death marks. He's using the Doomsday Arcs to actually pop some vehicles and trucks. John McAfee said, I ran truck spam with boys, beast nagas. Bro had 3 of those hexes. Yeah, that's what I'm talking about. He was going heavy with those hexes. As you can see, why as Christian named off a bunch of lists. And as we're saying, guys, he's giving an example. John is giving us a direct example of we're showing a list, and he's saying, I played against someone that played a similar list to that. This is why these things are happening. They're good, and because people are seeing that it's good, and they're going to mimic it in some ways.
So, like I mentioned, the first part of the list is the hex marks for the shooting. Then comes the overlords for the free strats.
We're talking about how they're related to orcs and dealing with them, and how the orcs are dealing with the truck spam, right? Because I don't want to just go over exactly every Necron capability. We're talking about in this list, what is the weakness, as you just said. I'd like to hear more about that.
Yeah,
Yeah,
and then so the thing is, you have to watch out when you run into these blobs. Is these crypto thralls? They will keep them in live, so that if the crypto thralls give the unit a fight on death. So imagine those Lich card, you think, oh my god, I'm finally here. I'm finally get to fight them. Then they go, yeah, you get to fight me, but I get to fight you too. And then they just roll a 3 up. Then they get to activate fight on death because this crypto thralls passes the ability on to the Lich card. So one thing you might want to do is force them to use their crypto thrall saves early because those guys have a feel no pain. So if you have something like bomb squigs, they'll make them want to say, okay, crypto thrall is a 4 feel no pain. Maybe want to take the save. Maybe want to activate that on the crypto thrall. But otherwise, the rest of the unit has a 5 of feel no pain. So you got to think of ways to make them use those crypto thralls so they can delete that fight on death. So that those those Lich guard don't get free attacks back on your activation.
Yes, and the small units, that's the issue, is as John was saying, they don't have the ability to reach out and touch everything. As they're running bricks of slow, walking up the field. These are gun shooting platforms essentially. They're gonna try it out. These are anti-tankers more or less.
Those are strength 14, 4 damage.
So these are good at taking out vehicles or light vehicles in some cases. But as John said, how good are they at dealing with fast, let's say bikers, let's say trucks with boys, let's say storm boys around the battlefield? You don't always have to directly go and kill everything, guys. Remember, as an orc player, you have to run out, take the OC, get around the battlefield, and score. So with that being said, this unit could run into problems with that, as I don't really see any kind of speed or ability to initiative past the middle of the battlefield.
You want to stuff this unit inside the deployment zone,
but not give away your kills, like Christian said, either, as they do fight in death.
So this matchup might be one of the few games where you take those bikers, you might want to turn one WAAAGH, because if you stuff them there just for a whole movement phase, that can be the difference between winning and losing the game. Because your WAAAGH isn't going to be too crazy, because you're not killing anything anyways, and that invul might be okay for that turn 1 invul. But 2-3, where you want to use that WAAGH to normally smash an army, this kind of list is going to stop him from being smashed on. Just like the Custodes, you're not going to smash them just with the extra strength or just the extra attack. They might roll enough dice to make it not matter. So you might want to use the WAAGH more for utility than just for damage in this kind of case.
Yep. And right here, John said, I killed one of his units, but I beat him on points. I just played the secondary game. And yes, as orc players, we always go for being the secondary game. And like you said, kill what you can. You killed one of those units. That's what you really try to do. That's why I like to reference the scalpel unit as the knobs a lot, right? Something that can go in there and try to just kill something outright. I see people using gas for that same reason. You need something that can reliably deal that damage for the rest of you to slow your rate of attrition, right? To control one side of the battlefield. Because you can't take everything. You can't control everything as an orc player. As people are going to have these Death Stars and these super killer units. What we're trying to do is poke a hole somewhere in there, get to their backfield, surround them, score, take the back, hold them in one part of the table. We don't really care. Concede maybe an objective or two and win in that way, right? And Necrons are an army that generally we beat them because they lack speed. They lack the ability to kill our hordes, and our diverse units of medium-sized mech units like killer cans give them problems as well. So that will always kind of be true to a certain extent, as Necrons haven't changed data sheet-wise a ton, right? In the additions, and those units still always worked. So putting pressure on them, guys, but not throwing away your units. Know where you're putting the pressure and what it's going into, guys, is what's important. If you can go in there and tag some of these Doomsday Arcs with your quick units, playing an MSU game, I see the MSU game really being the way that you can beat Necrons in your local meta, not trying to challenge them Death Star for Death Star, Blob for Blob, Mech Knob for Mega Knob.
Yeah, the thing with Necrons is one of those armies that does not have access to fall back and shoot. So if you can pile into a unit that we want to shoot that Doomsday Arc or those heavy destroyers, an Alpha Link or something, that's key to turning off their shooting, because then they can't do much. Those Lich Guard just get 3 attacks, strength 6, -2 damage. That's not like impressive. They're just there to stand still. So if you can tag the rest of the army so they can't fall back and shoot you, you're totally gonna be able to just survive.
Yep, and as John McAfee said, that's why I left it up here. He just played the secondary game. That's what you want to keep in mind as orc. If we're going to do this, controlling your rate of attrition and playing the secondary game. So as for Necrons, guys, take your scalpel unit. Don't let it get easily overwatched and killed just for making movements, as that's what people are going to have a lot of with the Hexmark destroyers. Don't throw away random crappy shots at units that are near the Deathmark destroyers, as they're going to shoot you back. Be prepared for the 4 feel no pains on the crypto thralls. Be prepared for the fact that they're going to get back up when you go to fight them. So if you're going to decide you're going to kill one unit, have multiple units that are ready to kill the Lich Guard blob that you choose to kill, if there is only one, right? There might be a unit of Necron warriors out there that people are using as well, right? Knobs with big choppas or a bunch of beast snagger boys beat the crap out of those guys. So that's another way to deal with it. And like I said, flash kits, guys, we've been seeing them do good. Flash kits do good against those as well. Killer cans, in my opinion, are pretty good into Necrons as a whole. So you can use that as well. If they do run these bricks and you're hitting them with the rockets and you're getting blast into them, messing them up, they don't really care as much about the Hexmark destroyer shots. What is his profile looking like? Would it really mess with the killer can? I remember off the top.
Hexmark is strength 6, 6 shots, -2/1 damage. Just not hitting anything toughness 7.
And the killer cans are only are they 6 now? 5, 6. So and then they're 5 wounds a pop with the 3 of armor save. So he's not really harassing them like
he might pop a couple wounds, get him down to 3
Exactly.
wounds, but he's not doing much.
So then that's what we like to see as Orc player, guys. We don't want someone to efficiently kill us in any kind of way. Okay. And John McAfee, did you use Squig Hog Boys? I guess I want to say that as a whole. So keep that in mind, Christian, if you want to summarize ways Orcs deal with Necrons, and then we'll move on to the third matchup.
Yeah, some overall summary, tag the shooting, avoid the big blobs of unkillable death balls, just play around it. They lack the speed, so if you see any speed on the list, take that out right away, like the Tomb Blades. You might see some outflanks, some deep strikes, something that's away from the just big old bubble of, I got my reanimator, stay away from that unless you need to. Overall, have that epic challenge in your pocket to just snipe a character real quick.
Okay. Epic challenge to snipe a character. And I think going with a bunch of Orcs guys and war bosses and beast bosses. It's going to be and making that the way to go. Is it open when I open any tab only? Oh, we're here. Sorry, guys. We're opening the. I don't know what's happening with this one, but it's giving us an issue. Here we are. So let's share screen that. I didn't have a share screen, so bear with me. So Eldar as a whole, Orcs do decent against. We do have a good win rate into them. Sitting at about 40. What was that? 47. I can look at it. Chris, if you want to go, Chris, you can read over the list real quick. Yeah, we're at a 46% win rate against Eldar guys, but like everybody, Eldar is beating people up on their way to the top. So particular lists do very well into Orcs, but not every list, as Orcs do generally have great abilities and tools, and so kind of all Eldar, in my opinion. So Chris, let's look over their list real quick, and then we'll talk about what to do against Eldar and why this list possibly wrecks some Orc lists right now. Yeah,
so you start with the Autarch, Wayleaper, the Warlord. You got the Howling Banshee Mask. You got the Farseer Skyrunner. You got the Yunkarn. The Yunkarn, that's the big tech in this list, and that's a crazy thing to go over.
Oh, sorry. I was going to bring up John McPhee's list because this is, last comment he said, yeah, I had a 3-man unit of Squig Riders, 3 biker units, and Storm Boys. So funny enough, we didn't even know, and those are units we brought up, is bringing Storm Boys and bikers to help deal with Necrons as well. So it's good to know that you are validating our ideas and our thoughts and our experience as well. With those are the kind of units that generally do good in some Squig Riders. I'm sure do good as well. But yeah, that's how I see bikers kind of being good against them, as they're being T6. They have small arms fire to shoot at them on the way in, be annoying. They don't outright die, as they have a decent armor save as a 4-up. They still get cover, and they just stack that pressure, right? And they're pretty freaking cheap.
Yeah, bikers are my favorite anti-Necron unit in the Orc Codex.
So thank you for validating that. See, guys, boom, that's why your comments matter, because right there he gave us feedback that directly was translating to what we were talking about. We didn't just pull it out the air, because we pulled it out from our experiences. As he's played Necrons, was his main army, and I've always played against him with Orcs. So this is something that we actually dealt with a lot and appreciate. So we continue with these Eldar guys, and like I said, as an overall as a whole, Orcs are actually doing good, but we're going to just briefly cover Eldar because they're still beating the crap out of everybody at the top tier. We're going to cover them, but not spend too much time here because everybody's tired of talking about them. So, Christian, sorry about that.
Yeah, so what you'll see in Eldar lists, and this one specifically too, is they trade out the giant Wraith Knife for that Towering for the Yunkarn, which we'll go over in a bit after going over this list. But it's just a great utility tool they have in their army that's just being utilized now because of the first wave of nerfs. So after that, we got 3 Fire Prisms, which are still way too cheap at 150. It's insane.
That's a Death Dread.
Yeah, but it's like the efficiency of 5 Death Dreads put into one.
Okay, what about 3 Killer Cans?
Still way more efficient than
okay. All right, so let's go.
Sorry about that. Hornets, who are also they're a forgeable unit, I believe. Okay. Yeah, but Hornets are a forgeable unit. That's also just free lance cannons for 80 points. It's crazy.
Yeah.
Night Spanners, which are the indirect, Shadow Specters, who are
gunline here.
Yeah. Oh my goodness. More support weapons. And then some Warwalkers and some War Spiders, who are the Flamer Boys, who do devastating wounds.
That's I mean, that's just a lot of guns as a whole, but I could
2,000
see
points of
this
guns.
list not doing great against like an orc. I mean, well, I don't say orc MSC, but they might just have enough guns to just pick that up.
So the
That's
biggest thing
insane.
for this list is that
Insane.
it's basically just an army of lance cannons plus 40
Yeah.
warp spiders, I think it is. Or is it two bricks of 20 or 2 bricks of 10 warp
Let's
spiders?
see. These are a 5
Oh, 2 bricks
man.
of
These are 2 5 man.
oh, 2 5-man units. So
a couple warwalkers, these shadow specters here, and the incarn. The incarn, but they're using just to deal with whatever your problem unit is that's putting pressure on them, I guess.
yeah, so for those who don't know, the incarn is like it's like almost like a Catan. If you guys play Necrons, because I know that's a common army people have. It's a big melee unit whose ability is whenever anything dies, friendly or enemy, it takes the place of that model's location on the board. So it can get an so say on the Yunari turn or Eldar, it can easily transport to the Necron side or Orc side by killing an Orc truck, or if it's on the Orc turn, if you kill one of the backfield Eldar units, the Yunari teleports backwards into safety. So it really just makes people have different target priority than the rest of 40k. It takes a priority and turns it up to a different level.
But yes, and that's all true, guys. But as I'm looking at this list, I'm sure you guys can see too why Orcs do have a decent win rate into to Eldar. I'm not saying this. I'm just saying this would take an exceptional player to utilize this many guns, to stop that much orc momentum and pressure, to deploy correctly, and all that, right? So this is why you might see a list like this and think, man, yeah, oh, it beats orcs. Orcs just lose to it. Yep. Hey guys, these are the top players, and most people aren't going to execute a gun line this effectively and be able to deal with you applying that much pressure to them. And that's why I see orcs on paper as the overall stats, we are still beating Eldar. So this is just to show you, hey, competitively at the very top, there's a few people here and there that maybe are just over efficient. But as we've seen with some of our channel members and Discord members, is that they're just still beating Eldar even in some of their competitive games, even though it's coming in close. We've seen it with Beast Nagalist that went into some of the Wraith Knights, multi-Wraith Knights, and they might lose one game, and then he played Orc Knights, Eldar again, and he beat him on the next game, right? So these people who are running just straight gun lines, not enough melee to push us off them, is the way that Orcs are kind of handling this kind of army, even though they're overall still seen as too efficient.
Yeah, looking at this list, one thing you notice is there's not a bunch of like units that have a bunch of OC here.
Nope.
So you can easily at Orcs just swarm the objectives and get that OC on the board and just take away those primary from these guys.
Oh, and then WAAAGH, whoa! He said it's strength 8. I run 5 choppers and 5 claws in mine. Yeah, exactly. Thank you for clarifying on that. Yes, they are 8. So, come on, strength 8 with the choppers, guys, and then they're hitting on 3s, and then the warbond gets them to hit on 2s. Then you use the explode unbridled carnage. So part of me is looking at running 5-man units of the knobs, as they're only 15 points more than, or not, sorry, 10 more points than the Beast Naga boys. So I started to consider them. They do roughly similar to different to the units. The knobs are a little better. They have a slight better, more durability, and they're smaller, as I can hide them and not get overwatches easily, or take small arms fire in general. So I started considering maybe I want to skirmish with knobs. You do lose out on some of the OC though. So just another thought in head why I've been thinking about knobs so much. The unit without the war boss is decent with big choppers, but then you add the war boss with the big choppers, you get volume, that much accuracy. If you're not relying on that AP in your local meta.
And then another thing too is having a small unit means you're easier to hide, and Orcs just Orcs are just super hard to hide if you have those big old blobs.
Yeah, when you're running around with a big brick of Squig Hog Riders and bikes and Killikins and hordes of boys or battle wagons, you're trying to hide all your trucks because those are where your effective units are. Sometimes having these little knob units might be nice, right? At least that we're going to find out. As you can see, more people, as we're going to look at this later, they're running more knobs, more than just a 10-man unit. So, as for the, we're going to go right into the Imperial Knights after this, guys, because Eldar have been covered enough. If we get a hiccup here on the list, hiccup here as we pull up the list, don't run away. This is just a little bandwidth thing happening here, so my computer needs to be slightly better.
Taken out to the back.
It's going to be taken out to the back and strangled, and I need to knock some teeth out and get a new computer. So Don't run away. Is it this list right here, Chris? Right?
Yes, that's the one.
So we're gonna pull them Imperial Knights. Now, as a whole guys, Orks do good against Knights too. 56 or maybe higher percent win rate. So I could beat, especially with the new.
I think Knights, when the first thing your TO will go over the tournament is the terrain layout and how it's played. And depending on if the TO decides that windows can be seen through or if windows have first rule and eyesight blocking, that itself is just a big factor in determining like how these night games are going to play out.
And what I was going to say is overall in stats, guys, so you know you don't feel automatically discouraged, is into Knights out of 43 games, Orks had a 64% win rate, guys. Okay, so yes, I know that they are brutal when you go against a really good list and everything, but if the Knights player doesn't bring the tools, or you do bring the direct tools with the Beast Snagger boys, stuff that can kill Knights outright and keep scoring the mission, we do get into them. But as everybody knows, if you played competitively, here's John McPhee again telling us, Knights equal grit. Yeah, if you bring, let's say, a horde of MSU units, Knights just run around and end up picking those guys up a bit. And we'll look at why right now in a bit. So, Chris?
Yeah, so start out with Knights. You got Canis Rex, you got the Knight Crusader, who is the one with the Gatling and the battle cannon. So these are doubles shooting Knights, and then you have Canis with the Las Impulsor and his big old fists. Then you have that's it, just two big Knights, and the rest are just Hellbrenns. And armored warplaves.
That's how they all similar. And so if we're gonna talk about Chaos Knights slightly as well, right? So they look very similar, right, Christian?
Yeah. So the thing is,
they're using
the difference between Chaos and Imperial Knights is Imperial Knights are more efficient with their guns, but Chaos have good utility with the units they can bring. So Imperial might be like the overall weapons might not look as good, but the way they buff those weapons as an army are just better than what Chaos Knights can do.
Because they have access to the big Knights, helping that as well, right? As for the little Knights, they just got a bunch of little Knights, Meltas, the main lake potential as well, really good at popping the Orks transports.
Yes.
But let's look at this, because everybody kind of knows, right? So let's directly talk about what's going to either favor you or hurt you. Really, what terrain rules are you playing by, and what style of list you're playing. If you're going, I'm going to run, there's an MSU style list, not really have anything that can punch up and kill a couple of Knights here and there, you're gonna have one threat maybe on the list, and Knights are gonna find a way to deal with that, their speed and range capabilities.
Yeah, John in the comments mentions games with favorable terrain rules. I'd like to say instead of favorable, it's more like just balance, because the issue like starting a new edition is they want to treat the new edition like the last edition. So you want to play 10th edition games like 9th edition terrain. But as you see with the new GW layout, GW have totally revamped the way they have layout tables. So you kind of like clear your mind and thinking about how these games are going to be played differently, because different mission setups, different terrain layouts. So these early games into the edition might seem maybe make an army look more one-sided than it is until you develop how to play the game more. So yes, at the beginning, Knights' terrain layouts were super, super crazy and favorable to them. But I think as we go on, that advantage Knights have will dwindle, just because the way games are played are going to be more like just known. There's less unknowns going into the game.
And I'm not saying don't bring any scoring potential here, guys. I'm saying in the list that I've seen that we're doing well in tournaments, and then they fall off or they lose just one game to Knights, it ends up being to Knights. And why that is they lack the threatening unit. So the Knights kind of throw themselves right at you, saying all these small MSU units aren't going to kill me. I'm going to pop this truck, charge into those guys. I'm going to shoot this unit, then fight this unit, shoot this unit. It's not going to kill me. So I'm not saying don't bring the scoring potential and think I'm going to auto lose. I'm saying you're going to need something that can threaten these Knights and gain their respect, not let them just run up on you and kill you. A lot of the time you see the Beast bosses and the Beast Mega Boys are getting a really good trade in return on these guys. Right? They'll run in there and they'll actually bring those units down. So that's what they really don't like seeing. And lucky enough for us, a lot of people are using the Beast Mega Boys with the Beast boss.
Yeah, and then, like, don't forget too, like, Mazrog might be looking pretty juicy, but don't forget the basic Beast boss on Swigger Sword. You can give him that relic, so every 4-up is mortal wounds. So in a vehicle heavy meta, you might want to take that generic beast boss just for that relic specifically, because that thing lets him melt through vehicles quicker than any other character we have.
And that is what most people are doing with it. And he said, it felt like we didn't even need to rain at all in the beginning of the edition. Now when playing Knights, right? When you're playing Knights, they just kind of handle you and they shoot you how they feel. It doesn't really end up mattering that much, right? So Knights as a whole, guys, how you're going to deal with them. If you're running a bunch of this, Chris, let's go through it. You go through it first, and then we'll handle this, because we don't spend too much time on the Knights either. As most people know, they're not diverse data sheets. It just happens to be, what did you bring? What did they bring? What terrain pieces are you using? What rules are you using for the terrain pieces?
Yeah, I think the biggest factor when going up against Knights is being able to predict their moves, because their models are so limited. They're only going to have one or two options with the way, depending on how you set up your own movement phase. So if you can basically play the game for them, like against Knights, you can say, if I do this, I know where Knights are going to go. So if you think that are able to look at it and see how Knights are going to play, you should be able to think further than them, because they're not going to be able to predict where all your Ork units are going. So utilize the knowledge of, I have more units, I have more variety in my moves, and use that to your advantage. I think it's the biggest ability Orks have against Knights is that just to be able to spread yourself out however you want versus Knights. Knights are forced to move into certain spots, because once you kill a couple 1 or 2 units, they have to move into units into specific spots, and that is something you can easily play around as Orks.
Not letting them get the initiative on you and take out all your threatening units, because you get a little too aggressive and really not think about it too long, they're going to start popping those off. They're going to commit to killing your threat and then just taking your not threatening units and killing you throughout the game too quickly. Okay, so the next army, guys, we're going to talk about is actually T-Sons. So T-Sons are,
that's a brutal match.
Typically, we do pretty good into them, surprisingly, right, guys? As they're pretty weak, they're pretty slow, their small arms fire didn't always bother us. But according to some of the numbers we're looking at here, out of 21 games, T-Sons have a 28%. We have a 28% win rate into T-Sons.
So that means you only win 1 out of 4 games.
Yes. And we're going to look at Joshua Ward, who was the best T-Son player this weekend. And we'll just take a look at his list. Most of them look the same guys. Most of them we're going to have our bull.
All right. Now that we're caught up.
No, we're still alive.
So, like you mentioned, this is a character-heavy army. So you got Armon on disc, who is there for the free once per game Cabal ritual. You got 2 Infernal Masters. You got Magnus. You got a Thousand Sun Sorcerer.
All these lists, not to be rude, they're all going to look very similar. So we can pick almost any T-Sons list, but this is the most highest performing. So we're going to look at this as most T-Son players are going to copy this.
So this list also has 30 rubrics, 2 bricks of 10, and then 30. 2 bricks of 5. So you notice there is weapon choices. The rubrics have a choice between flamers and bolters, and we've seen a lot more flamers recently because just Overwatch overall is such a strong strategy.
Overwatch is ridiculously powerful, guys. And as our players, we know this, we feel this, because whenever we're moving to kind of make up that distance, get closer to them, people are like, Overwatch, Overwatch, Overwatch. They're super excited, and we know it hurts because our units don't have the best saves.
So,
and that's a free activation, right?
Yeah.
What do we talk about with Orks? Don't give your enemy free activations. We lose the ability to control our rate of attrition the more activations we give people. You'll see sometimes you'll get so close, and you'll know they have a flamer and go, dang. I'm not going to move. I'm not going to move close. I'm just going to make this charge. So that's something we have to think about as well, right? That's why these players are starting to go more into it. And that's why we see on the competitive level, I've seen more commandos. And one list that I've seen last week had 20 commandos. Or Snikra with the commandos. And that's becoming more into play as flamers and Overwatch are becoming more relevant in the meta. And then obviously these the Vortex Beast.
Yeah, you get the Vortex Beast, you get some Zangor, which is some objective play, and then you have some different ally units. This list specifically. Trade up Terminators for Kairos Fate Weaver and the Warlock Brigade, who are 2 of the most efficient shooting lists shooting data sheets for Chaos armies in general.
The Fate Weaver, I'm not surprised at all.
Yeah, Kairos is crazy. He has indirect. He has 3 damage indirect, which is insane. He can make it like triple exploding 6s. He's crazy. And the Warlock Brigand, which I know and love, is just the most efficient like anti-tank shooting platform that Chaos Marines have access to at the moment.
Yeah, Christian's fans of. Right here, John McAfee. T-Sons don't have a lot of options for unit variety. He thought so too, so he brought Kiro's Fate Weaver and a Brigand, because you always gotta get Brigands if you're playing Chaos Marines. Christian knows. So yeah, as for these guys, Magnus can be a problem for Orc players to an extent. So Magnus' status sheet up top of your head, or at least there's the defensive stats.
So Magnus has 2 different guns. The one's his staff, one's psychic ability. The big thing with them is it's strength 9, I believe, both guns, and then flat 3 damage. So you're looking at good damage potential. And they'll make some over the top is that you can give him indirect. He also has his ability in his data sheet, +1 to hit, +1 to wound. So this guy is always winning everything at the least, the worst case scenario on 4s. And he's access to full rerolls. And he has about like 3 shots with one gun, D6 +3 with the other. My numbers might be a little off, but the whole point is that crazy efficiency, crazy damage in a body that can be flown around basically anywhere on the board, and him himself has access to -1 to wound. He has access to turn a damage to 0. He has access to free stratagems using the Cabal rituals. So this is just a crazy data sheet that is just impossible to avoid and play around in a game. He'll be wherever he wants to be with a double move. He'll do whatever damage to whatever he wants to do it to. So you'll just have to anticipate just playing against some unit that might be really, really hard for Orcs to take down, because he's going to turn all your damage 2 into damage 1. And he just is very, very like tough as a unit in general, just with his size.
-1 to hit melee?
No, he's not -1 to hit.
Okay. Yeah, and the -1 damage, guys, is going to be a reoccurring problem that we're running into as Orcs. The little bit there is because we don't have a lot of damage 3 in combat, other than, like we discussed, a couple of medium-sized mechs and our rockets. But we don't have a unit that comes in with the damage 3 hit anymore. Our Mega Knives can't even do that anymore. So we feel that.
Yes, for sure.
Typically, how Orcs do play around T-Sons is you find the weakest units on the battlefield, you initiate combat with them with your speed units, with the wall unit, you really get them and mess them up. But I can see how these become somewhat of a problem with the Flamers, right? As a whole, though, how you deal with T-Sons. You do time Magnus them as much as you can, as best as you can, because he is going to come at you and have to stop it, and you're going to have to interact with him. Typically, the Terminators are on the list, and typically you know where they're going to end up and where they're going to be. You might have to concede one side of the table. That being said, you're not conceding the secondaries on that side of the table. And
the thing is, though, don't just think the Terminators are just a slow 5-inch moving unit, because if they're in a list, what they're going to get access to is the free teleport strat. And unlike Necrons, where Necrons are set if the unit is touched, I cannot teleport, T-Sons can teleport outside of combat with their relic.
Yep, they can. So just being touched. But typically they are, in most cases, kind of slow, and even teleporting, you still have to get charges off, and they'll concede the table to you if they start teleporting away from you. So that matters. But you do want to go out there and deal with their smaller units, because they do still want to score secondaries. So you want to beat them in the skirmishing. And we have great skirmishing units as for that. But just so you know, Magnus is going to show up at some point. And Chris, what are you going to do?
Yeah, what you want to look for is going after those Rubik Marine blobs, because those are the support characters. Those are the guys doing secondaries. Those are them scoring the extra points. You might just accept that they're going to get close to max primary. You can win a game just by a secondary difference. Orcs are going to get good primary too. We're never not on an OBJ. We always have 1 to 2 to 3 units on an OBJ. So we're fighting for those. We might get our turn. They might get in their turn. But looking at how they can stop the secondaries, because imagine having to use Magnus to do a secondary. It's never going to happen. Or using a 10-minute Terminator route to do a secondary.
Yeah, he ends up being alive at the end of the game.
Yeah. Magnus will kill when he wants to kill, but he might not get the amount of points that a 20-man boys unit might end up scoring more points for you than Magnus does for his army, just because they can do that stuff that he can't.
Exactly. And the Rubiks are the key always to beating these T-Sons. Even if they are Terminators on the list, you're going to go out there, you're going to kill the Rubiks, you're going to kill whatever units. Sometimes they'll have demons. That they're in other demons, maybe some flamers and such as well. Start stacking all the flamers. You go out and start killing those guys. Terminator bricks, Magnus running around getting some kills. You're going to avoid them. Like I said, you're going to see this side of the table. John McAfee said, There are a few. There was a really good Orc versus T-Suns game on War Games Live a few weeks ago.
Love that channel.
Sweet guys, good job, good channel. It was a really good game. I won't ruin it. The Orc player just avoided Magnus most of the game. So
Just like
as
we
you
were
can
saying.
avoid, yeah, you concede some kind of the table sometimes. You do. I mean, but you're not conceding the secondaries on that side of the table, right? You still try to play the game best you can and always consider that. I hope the Orcs won that matchup. I actually didn't look at that yet. But Christian knows about that channel and he likes it. So that was still a good call out. So Christian, if you want to summarize ways to beat or handle T-Suns other than just avoid Magnus, real quick.
Measure your threat ranges, because the thing is with a lot of people fall into the trap of T-Suns is they think they know the threat range and then they don't, because they don't think about the double move. They don't think about the indirect fires shots from the guns, or they don't think about the deep strikes from teleporting units. So knowing your threat ranges, making sure your movement phase is precise against T-Suns is super important, because if you can position yourself in the right spot, this guy, like, he gets the flamers, but that's just, you might think 12-inch plus 6 because of the move, but it's actually 12 plus another 12 because they could double move a unit. So measuring your threat ranges will be the key to winning against the Thousand Suns, because if they have those big breaks, like you mentioned in that channel, if they're going to concede a portion of the board, but if you just focus on the rest of the units that you need to, picking the right target priority, focusing on those little blobs that are going to split secondaries, that's how you're going to win a game.
And one of the units has been coming up in most competitive plays and getting an uprise and how many times it's been utilized are the commandos, and Snake Rod is slightly finding his way more into these lists as well. You can see how that actually directly deals with what these guys want to do.
Yeah, I think we were all a little bummed when commandos couldn't be 5-man blobs just to hide.
Pretty expensive too.
Yes, but I think the utility of just turning off the best strat in the game, which is Overwatch, has shown that they might be worth their weight in gold in some lists.
Yeah, in some local, like if you know your meta has a lot of guys that really want to Overwatch you, commandos just giving them the threat of I am going to move and start touching you and doing things. I still can't get the 20-man unit list out of my head to an extent, but there are snicker out lists out there as well that do good. And like we said, that stacks with the whole pressure as a whole. If you're bringing bikers, if you're bringing a snot bomb, stuff like that. Snot bomb is a Wartsnagger with 20 grass, by the way, as we said. So T-Suns, using your speed to maneuver the battlefield, take out their scoring secondary units, having enough units to slow them down if they do have to come and interact with you, right? Throwing maybe too many trucks into them, stuff like that. Not always trucks, guys. We're just
no such thing as too many trucks.
Yeah, remember, we're joking about trucks always being the answer. They're not always the answer. They're very good. They are an answer, but not always the answer. For T-Suns as well. And yeah, they're not very common, but just so you guys know, they are an army that we don't technically do great into, and it does end up being a hard matchup for us. Now, last but absolutely not least is another army that does that we have a hard time into, guys, and that is actually World Eaters. So World Eaters, out of the 22 games, we're at a 27% win rate. So that's actually right alongside the Necrons and the Golden Boys as to how we do casually, of course, into them. So let's see if we can add this here. Boom. Now, the list that we're going to use is actually
my list.
Christian's list. So this list is actually, Christian took this to an RTT. We looked at the grand tournaments, everything that happened this weekend, and there were no World Eaters to be found, okay?
Yeah,
there was no World Eaters to be found in the top 100 sometimes in these large tournaments. And Christian ended up performing one of the best out of the World Eater players that played, and we'll see why here. But he can directly talk about why and some of the keys as to why World Eaters directly interfere with how Orcs want to play, just like Custodes do. John McAfee said, actually, there is an incorrect amount of trucks, Chris. It's 7.
That's just because the game doesn't let you take
No, it's 7. It's 7. He's right. It's 7. Good answer, technical. You know what? You have your thinking grot on, right? You put your thinking grot on. So I was listening to the Gaz book. What up, Brandon? Roar! After this, guys, later we're going to also be showing some of hobby progress, guys. Keep that in mind. I have a bunch of you guys' pictures up in here. Actually, a few guys in here in this chat, from WAAAGH to Brandon to John, are people that we have some of your lists. I mean, some of your hobby progress pictures that we're going to show later after we discuss a little more of this. We're almost done here, as World Eaters are the last of the Nemesis matchups for now. Anybody else that you've seen show up, we actually beat the crap out of for the most part. There are Space Marines that give us a hard time to an extent, but we don't have the numbers for that. And we don't have the direct games. At least I don't like Blood Angels into Orks right now. But those are other low-key shout-outs we can also say is some Space Marine direct fighting armies are kind of hard to deal with too, like World Eaters and not World Eaters, sorry, like Blood Angels and like Templars, but not enough that they came up in the stats.
So for World Eaters, I want to just go over what I think you guys might see more than what I might run on my list just real quick, because my list is very unconventional for World Eaters. I think you guys will see a lot of Angron. I think you guys will see a lot of Lord of Vacadas, some 8-bound, and some Exalted 8-bound. And you'll see just a quick turn one, everyone's going to come at your face World Eater style and just maybe get 2-3 units, just early charges into the game and just try and just melee you for 5 turns straight. So going over my list I played a lot differently at this tournament. So what I did is I cut Angron, I cut Lord of Vacadas, I had no Exalted 8-bound. It's not a lot of those heavy pressure units that you see in a traditional World Eaters list. I relied more on, weirdly, like World Eater durability and just persistence and just being a unit that plays the objective more than just knowing just go for the blood guy. So I have a Demon Prince. His role was to have the Helm Brazen Iron for half damage and gives a bunch of my units just a 4-up influence. He was just center focus in the middle of the field. And then I have 2 Masters of Executions who are there for the relics more than anything. One was for crazy amount of damage with the Berserker Glaive, and the second guy was for my favorite of Khorne, which lets me get the buffs that I want to get on my army at the right time. Supporting those guys, I have.
Can you elaborate here on why these guys are actually different and the problems with Orks, though?
Yes, so the Massive Executions are what Eddie calls indirect fire for melee. So they have a Berserker Glaive, gives the character on a charge D3 attacks, D3 damage. Combo that with always fights first, always precision attacks, reroll all hits and wounds versus character, and devastating wounds on 6s to wound. This guy will potentially have a flat damage 4-axe, 8 attacks, rerolling, exploding hits, devastating lethal hits or exploding hits, or both, rerolling all the wounds, and all he needs is 2 6s, flat 8 mortal wounds, and then he make you take 6 saves on whatever. Because don't forget, if you have a character keyword, those saves fall over to the rest of the unit, even though they're full rerolls. So you will make this guy precision and just snipe a character out in melee before anything happens else.
Fight first.
Yes, it's insane. The other guy is just second character, so he does the same thing, but he's only damage 2. He's there for the utility, like I mentioned. He might be the first one you throw away because he's really there for that flavor of Khorne on the turn 1 to get the turn 1 buffs you really need. If you need that advanced charge, if you need that feel no pain, this guy is there to give you the key reroll of your dice so you make sure it happens.
And then we're not. Remember, he's talking about this because he's like ranting like he's playing World Eaters. That's not what we really care about. We're talking about with Orks why this is a problem is because he does give you advance and charge so you can get the initiative with his fight first, right? So they're going to stand in the bubble with the 4-up invuln guys. That way, if you do have any small arms fire shooting, they're going to tank your quality shooting. But then also, if they do take damage, you come down to the Khorne Berserkers, they'll actually make distance up and get closer to you as you shoot at them, right? So this is how this is starting to stack and why I joke that it's indirect. He's playing indirect melee here, right? Because 1, he can heroic intervention into you. 2, he's going to fight first into you. He's going to precision into you. He has to get closer to you because he's not scared of your small arms. He's just going to move closer to you with the berserkers that he's in with it, right? So this guy directly becomes a problem. And as we can see, Brandon, our local Big Mac, did do good into the World Eaters, but he brought a medium-sized. He brought a lot of kill tanks, and most people don't have kill tanks like that. Good job, Brandon. I like to always shout out when you murk him. But most people don't have the kill tanks to shoot these problems away and then also tank their melee and then do the different variables. So medium-sized mech armies do help with that. But as you can see, why this would be an issue is if you're going to come in there with a quality melee unit and he comes out and he precisions out your character, reduces its durability, reduces its fighting capability, reduces your ability when fighting in death. He gets a 4-up invuln, so he could possibly tank that because it's for shooting and for melee. And then on top of that, these jackals all have sticky objective guys. So the shooting we do here, the fighting exchange, if we do fight to the death with them, because they fight about as good as orc boys, natural orc boys do, these guys just stand there and they're willing to die early game, deal with your screen and still hold that objective and force you to walk out and walk into a trade. So that's also what they're doing.
Yeah,
here.
those Jackals will get that invuln too. They'll get a feel no pain, so they're gonna make
Oh,
you
yeah,
waste
they get
extra attacks.
Yeah, they get an invuln and a feel no pain as well. So
Probably feel no pain most likely. So they're gonna. That's what they're gonna be there for. So you waste more attacks than you think you're gonna waste on those kind of units.
Yes. And we should have discussed more of the strats into those armies that we talked about. Like we kind of fell outside of that, but some of the strats that world leaders have that would be a problem.
You have -1 damage in melee.
Oops, did I mention that was going to be a problem consistently, guys?
And if you want to shoot them off the board,
that seems to be a consistent problem here, guys, huh? If you're going to reduce damage or have an abundance of durability like those Lich Guard for Orks, reducing damage greatly messes us up, guys, considering we're spamming AP1 damage 1 or we're spamming damage 2 that reduces the AP1, and that's considered our quality. So here we go again. Another army that's reducing damage is like, oh, that's messing with us pretty bad here. So they're fighting us first. They have reduced damage. They have invulns in 4 both phases with their quality combat units. 4 of invuln. And continue.
Yeah, and then the other strat to watch out for is if you want to go that shooting route, if you kill a world leader's unit while he's on an OBJ, he'll bloody that OBJ and make it even his, even though he killed his unit. So you might want to kill units on OBJ to stop the primary scoring, but it might not happen because you might take away your own charges, which would have been the only way to take the objective from him actually.
Yes. And this unit, because they can come out and charge you, like when Brandon talked about how he played against them and other people talk about them, you know they can come out and charge you. And like I talk about with Orks, we want to control the initiative. We want to control the rate of attrition. These guys directly want to challenge us in that. They actually have slightly more speed than us. They have passive abilities to be durable in some annoying ways with their high-quality units. They get the initiative in combat, even if you do find a way to beat them maneuverable with combat because they're fight-first capabilities. And they have different ways to tank your combat if you do outmaneuver them, and then hit you back and have a quality return and kill your unit too. So this is definitely becoming a problem.
Yeah, so the world leaders have the same issues that into Orks, so they have against Custodes. They have the same issues into world leaders. They have
very similar.
And they just weird fight first, weird minus damage, just extra durability that most armies wouldn't normally have. So that's the play style this list kind of ran.
And they want to challenge you on what you want to do, but they have the quality of attacks and a different kind of durability that sometimes they can deal with it, even with our durability, right? Because the whole problem here is these units, as we talk about with some of these Ork characters, is they die very easily. And these guys that get to fight first will precision out your unit, your character, and really diminish the capability and all the stats and the things that you have going on in your head, the math you have going on in your head. Well, the indirect melee, like I like to call that, handles that. Indirect melee is what world leaders present and what golden boys present when they're built correctly, right? If they're not sticking to, I'm just going to bring hand ground and try to bully you with one big dude. You're talking about how they play and they're really beating people up. Is they bring a bunch of mastery of executions, they build a bunch of high sticky objectives, fire and then deliver those mastery of executions. And then they have the transports, that way you have to pop them kind of like we do with our Ork trucks, right? Plus they have all the pre-game moving and everything they want to do, or first turn ability to pressure us, right?
Yes, that's where the 8-bound, if you scroll down, those guys have the pre-game scout move.
Yes. And that's where the 8-bound come into play, as we talked about with their quality units, right? These guys still do have quality attacks and can skirmish you and beat up most of your skirmishing units if they don't tank everything you do, because there's a chance these guys can tank it too. Not always, but there's a small chance. And last but not least, like we talked about before, super efficient data sheet as a whole. Christian brings
triple brigand.
So
that's 3 guys indirect, 3 guys with strength 12 multis, 3 guys with 12 Gatling shots. And the thing is with these guys too is like they'll with that AP, like their data sheet doesn't look like that intimidating with AP, but the fact they're hitting on 2s, extra AP on the closest unit, they will murder those screens that you want to make so that the world leaders don't touch what they want to touch with those characters. So these guys are there to make sure you can't hide your characters behind the spots you want to hide them.
And pop your transports.
Yes.
As world leaders technically don't have guns typically to pop your transport. And let's say you're staging a truck. These guys are fast enough to cut an angle on that truck and try to pop it, right? And then they're also not scared to draw out your quality combat unit. Then when you take your quality combat unit to deal with them, the world leaders to take their quality or even one of their cheaper units and countercharge you, right? So that's where you can see, and that's not just for Orks, this is just in general, people would have to deal with that. As these guys for 150 points are outrageously better than something like a Death Dread, right? Death Dread is a joke compared to those, and so is the Crown Effects. So yeah. World Leaders are another army that does get into Orks for the similar reasons that Custodes do. To be honest, I mean, they just get a easy advantage into us by just standing in the right spots, right? That doesn't mean they auto win. It just means that you have to think when you're making your list how you're going to use these units to score and play the game and not die so quickly that they just get to run around the table yet. And also, you can't be so scared of them that you stand in your backfield and never score your secondaries because you're scared of being charged. I'm sure it happens both ways where you're like, man, I want to run out and take the table, but then they get to come out and charge you. Most of these lists aren't even going to have these brigands. We just brought this to Christian showed. These are very useful for Christian, and they make up the difference for the fact that you lack shooting. Just like with Orks, when you want to build competitive, you want to bring some shooting. World Eaters the same way. That's how Christian managed that. But for World Eaters as a whole, their sticky objectives, their capability to indirect your characters out of the unit, their capability to tank some of your quality shots, their capability to reduce damage when you fight them, are all things that are going to make them difficult opponents to deal with. And they're fast to take the initiative on us.
Yeah, the key if you want to take apart World Eater, you got to pull apart. You got to make sure the units spread out, spread them thin. That makes the Demon Prince's aura just not as good. And if you spread them thin, what they'll mean is they'll have to spread their buffs on movement buffs instead of on damage buffs. So if you can force them to want to buy into that 2-inch move where they advance and charge, that means they don't get access to 6-up exploding, 6-up auto wounding. So getting them to just spread out thin, making sure they have to spend the extra resources to make themselves less deadly, is how you want to play against them.
Yep. They're definitely a problem, but a lot of people are still having certain wins into them if you're using mid-sized mech or even some mechanized armies. Like, as we've seen, kill tanks would do great against them. These guys don't necessarily burn through Meganobs, but Meganobs could miss. It just depends on how you roll.
Yeah, and if you see an opponent that brings Angron, you should almost be thankful, because Angron isn't as good as, like, Magnus. Angron is just a one-dimensional threat that is just going to go just hyper missile and just smash something, but that's easier to play around. That's something that can help maneuver with shooting.
Yeah. So with World Eaters, they do still want to score, but they don't want to spread apart all over the battlefield. They want you to challenge them in the middle of the table and beat you up in a fight, get you some bad trades out of you because they're still considered an elite army. They want to try these stack these durability buffs. So what you do is you play KG, only present them dumb things to charge into, maybe bikes, maybe grots, maybe trucks. And as you do that, you prepare and counter your counter charges. You keep playing the secondary, utilize the Storm Boys to take the corners of the table, maybe use the fly capabilities to get past them and make them maybe turn around and have to charge away. And really control the rate of attrition while not being scared to move and take control of the table for those secondaries.
Yeah, I think one thing we got to do, like, disregarding the World Eaters as a whole, is as we develop and learn 10th edition more, we got to understand what secondary cards are left in our deck, and what secondary cards are left in our opponent's decks. Because if we think about that in advance before they even draw any potential cards, we can figure out ways in our movement phase to avoid giving them free points. Because there's
play poker,
dude. Honestly, you gotta think about, hey, do I need this unit on an OBJ? Because if you leave them on OBJ, you might give them your opponent free secondary points, or you might give them no prisoners points with easy kills. You got to think about, like, which cards have we drawn, or how do we want to set up for the next turn? Maybe we can set up for turn, like, there's a silly secondary where you have to go investigate the corners, but you put your whole army in the center. If that's in your deck on turn 5, you never. So I just a general tip for 10th edition is try and learn those secondary decks. It can be a big advantage going into any matchup if you can be able to say and guess and just look at the odds of what secondaries does he need to beat me, or what secondaries do I need to beat him, even though it's random sometimes.
And don't be scared to spew into your mech, into your assassinate, as people, if they do go into fixed secondaries, it limits them in more ways than it limits you, and you don't really mind that much.
Yeah.
So don't be scared to do that at all, right? Bring those characters. Let's expand our minds a bit. Look for more skirmishing. Maybe 2 war bosses, maybe 2 beast bosses. I'm not mind smashing quick a beast boss, right? I'm trying to think that in my head. Maybe a snick rot, maybe a zag struck with a beast snag with the storm boy unit. I know that's weird, but trust me, he might find good. So let's keep our minds open. Now, what we're going to do is we're going to look at Matt Neely, as he did the best in this event. And I'm using this event as an example, guys, because look how many games these guys are getting, right? It's very important that the quality of games and the amount of games you're getting really determine what units are viable and what lists are viable. That's why we favor towards GTs. We're not going to go over every single list matchup. We're going to look at his list, review some of the consistencies, look at some of the other lists we went over in the same tournament, and see how that could probably be an issue for them, right? Tyranids are another army guys that we do good into, but they can present us certain problems depending on our list matchup, but they weren't statistically relevant enough as an opponent, as a nemesis for us to bring them up, but they do have some winning keys that they can use. Also, if we lag right here, we pull this up, don't hate us. Give us a second.
Share your screen. Say Google Slides, and then it'll be subscriber picks.
All right, Chris, if you want to go over the orc list real quick, I'll try to pull up the pictures.
Yeah, so we have the Beast Boss, no relics. Beast Boss on Squigosaur, no relics. Even though he's the Warlord, we got Necron, we got a War Boss, we got another War Boss. We got War Boss on a bike with a super separate body. So you'll see here, this guy did take enhancements on his war bike, and it's just something we feel like. I mean, I think we've all kind of known that there's just missing that one little character keyword, but he's a leader. He's a character. He's a character.
Yeah, I'm digging this. I mean, you guys hear me when I rant about bikes. I mean, this guy is bringing the characters, and what I really like about the Warboss on bike guys is that he has a very small base. So I can see this guy was trying to take advantage of that. What'd you say here, Chris?
Yeah, and don't forget this was the GT in Tacoma, right?
Yep.
Yeah, so this is an official GW event, like actually one of the 4 GW events. So the fact that the Warboss on bike was able to have an enhancement kind of shows you itself, like, hey,
the TOs approved of it.
Yeah,
the TOs approved of it. Therefore, I'm just going to go ahead and say that we can think about that as most likely going to be a consistent theme here, that people are going to just run them like that. I know people are still questioning it. Good for us, because when we make these lists, we're going to just consider that they all have the proper keywords for that. And then, let's move with some of his units he had. Only 1 unit of battle line, Beast Mega Boys, 3 trucks, and that one for the 6th, but he still ran at least 3. I like that. 3 unit Gretchen. Commando, as we've seen Snicker out, of course. I can see why he brought it with all the Overwatch. Maybe he thought about bringing 2 after this event, huh? Okay. Ooh, let's go. No big choppers, but he brought double knobs with the power buff. I call these guys scalpels. He brought them more as a machete. Okay, he was just straight up. This looks like a knob list, guys. Just straight up knobs. Knobs on war bike, Stormblade. No Stormblade. He did pretty good.
Yeah, I think the most interesting choice on his list that he brought was those knobs on war bikes.
Yeah, I haven't seen that at all. Chat, have you guys seen that at all? Can I get some feedback here? You guys are a little low energy today for the WAAAGH, guys. I don't know what's happening here. But have you guys seen, knob war bikers? I mean, not even in our Discord have we been discussing that too much. So, yeah, that was impressive. Some of the consistency here, guys, consistent things that we have seen here is just straight up Beast Boss on Squigosaur, very popular unit we've been talking about. War Boss, very popular, running multiple of them. Beast Boss, this guy only brought 1, but he brought it in conjunction with a War Boss. You'll see that throughout some of these lists. There'll be a Beast Boss and a War Boss, 2 different kind of cheap exchanging units or throttling characters that help you really skirmish and fight around on the battlefield. So I appreciate that a lot. It's very fun to see, and it's powerful. As for
the Baron, do you run war bikers or knobs on war bikes? That's a big difference, because that's the difference between 27 bikers and 9 bikers.
Yeah, because there are how many points for that?
Because it's 3 for 125.
Yeah, and it's 150 for 6 generally.
Okay, so he says he runs both kinds of bikers. What do you feel like you've been using the knobs on war bikers for? Do they have the same like tool?
Cool. I think the fact that they're smaller, right? The fact that they're such a smaller profile and trying to hide fat 6 bikes, you're just trying to run 4 high quality bikers coming in with power claws, coming in with their small bases. That War Moss is getting in there with his little tiny thin base. He's a Forge World model. These guys are These guys seem like a fast scalpel unit, a precision scalpel unit, but at a smaller kind of point value trade, right? They're going to go out there and fight something that's around 200 points and possibly beat it. That's interesting. They still get 2 OC, so that's good for sure.
Okay, so 3 full war bikers and then 1 biker knobs unit. So that's just like a full-on biker list then. That's just every bike you can take in the course.
I mean, with him, what he brought in the...
Yeah. But this list that we brought up in on the screen, it's an interesting list to me because, like, in my mind, I can't imagine exactly how he wants to play it. Just because there's so many fast units, there's so many different ways he can play this out.
Is he just? I mean,
like, right? is this guy turn 1 Y like every time, or like what's going on here?
Because remember, guys, the war bikers do allow you to auto advance 6. I'm just asking where I find these. We're not at that point.
Present what? Present like you're
sharing the screen. I wonder, like,
I'm saying I don't even know.
Because he only lost 2 games with these lists,
I'm trying to pull them up.
And they were around 5 and around 7, so they're quality opponents. So I wonder if he used those war bikers to like some effect, or if those would be some units that he would consider like changing out. Because if you notice too, on his list, the war bosses on bikes were the only 2 units with enhancements. So he really has put some effort into how he's thinking about how to maximize those units. He has 1 for survivability and then 1 for the speed.
Yep.
So how does he? That's the biggest thing for me is how does he get the most out of those 3-man bike units? Because those are pretty expensive at 125. Because you can get 3 for 75.
Yeah, for sure.
3 for 125. That's a big investment for just 2 more wounds on a unit. Because don't forget, a regular bike squad already has 1 knob. So you're just adding 2 more whole wounds to the unit for an extra 50 points. So that's the biggest question I have on this list.
This is the closest thing we've seen to someone trying to run a speed wall, guys. So get some credit here. Get your hearts up, guys. Remember, this isn't all about just playing the most competitive meta thing. This is me just trying to show you guys what's out here, what's being played, what's viable. I've seen people asking me, how do the knobs on war bikes work? Would I run them? How do I see them? They're pretty awesome. That's what. You can still use them. I like the fact that they do get an increase in durability because they go up to 4 wounds instead of the typical bike being 3 wounds. They used to not distinguish that back in the day. Christian already brought that up, but I'm just bringing it up again. And then the power claw or the kill saw access you have there for the additional strength, because typically the war bikers, you're like, I can use them for utility and for harassing, but am I really killing or hurting anything? It seems like he just decided, I don't care to harass and not get a kill trade. These guys are going to be able to hide, harass, kill trade, threaten, because the war boss on bike allows them to auto advance 6, advance and charge with their base and 8 extreme speed of, is it 14 or 12 now? It's 12 now. So 12 speed. So dang, that's a huge threat range. Not to mention he's coming in with 2 of what I call the scaffolding units in the knobs in the bikes and the trucks, guys. So imagine that every one of these units is coming out here to punch up. Even the commandos coming in, even they decide not to wall turn 1 with the bikers. Let's say they wait, they can use Necron to redeploy. So that's another way to score. And you can tell that he's taking advantage of these grots using a score because he brought 3 of them for that reason. I'm sure those grots and the storm boys are just straight up how he's going to score, as well as his trucks can do actions at the end once they disembark all those guys that are coming out. So I like this. There's like no fat on this list. You can directly see what he's trying to do. He's applying consistent pressure with units that are all winning skirmish fights against anybody that's 150 points or higher. That's really what you can see. He's running, because think about what anybody that's under 150 point unit, generally speaking, is not going to threaten these units either.
Do you think he's ever calling turn 1 WAAAGH?
Of course, it comes down to the mission, of course, right? The deployment and the enemy. As we spoke about before, some armies just can't punch you off them, right? And if you're coming in here with all these units that are threatening and punching, you're going to fight in death. You're going to give yourself another durability with -1 to wound. You're going to and then you're going to be applying pressure consistently on them. It's just, yeah, I'm thinking about it in my head. I'm like, at first I was like, this seems kind of kind of like small army list, but the speed, the punching, the weird durability, I really like what he did with this list. It gives Speed Wall some love. It gives him some attention. And he went heavy on these characters, though, right? Just, I mean, how many characters do you have here? Is this 6? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7.
So, the Baron, you said
Let
Burner
me
Boys in the
let me
truck.
post some of these banners. Sorry, guys.
Overwatching with the Burner Boys?
Let me post some of
You
these.
can't you Burner Boy Overwatch from a truck just because you can't use fire.
Let me catch up on some of these chats, guys.
Just questioning.
Let me set up on some of these chats, guys. I've been a mess. So we got, I don't know what year is, but year Warband. He says, I run war bikes, 3 units, 2 beast boss on Stegosaurs. Oh, he was just commenting with us. Sorry, guys. I was just looking at the stream.
That's okay. I was paying attention to you.
Good,
I was talking back.
Yeah, you were talking back to him good. I was like, Chris was getting some good relevant here.
And he's doing some side stuff to get prep for after these lists. So
oh yeah, after this guy, after we cover this, for everybody in the chat right now, we're going to talk about the Discord. We're going to share some Discord pictures and the hobby and just talk about it as a whole, guys. Keep talking about the topic we just discussed. Anything you guys want to talk about and discuss, keep that up. But yeah, we're going to directly share some of your guys' pictures, such as John McPhee, WAAAGH, a few people off the top of my head that I know that we have pictures of. So we prefer to see that because those guys deserve love on their hobby, and I like to give towards a shout out. And then let's see what the other one. John McPhee said that list looks sick, fast, hits hard, and some durability. Right, it does. It's whatever you have for skirmishing, it's like winning all the skirmish fights. What's gonna stand up to that many knobs with war bosses in each one of those units? You know, like what?
What I like about this list too, it almost dares the opponent to pick fixed secondaries with having all those characters. He's like, pick them, lose those extra CP generation potentially. Pick a fix like good. Yeah, you have good characters, but what else are you gonna do? Like that's the issue is fixed. Sometimes lists like this only have one good fix to take, but they make it super enticing because you know those characters are gonna be right in your face.
Yeah. I like, and I thought it's interesting. I'd like to hear why though. Why didn't he find a way to put Edwapa's kill chop on this? And if he missed it, right? That's one thing I'm looking at it. Did he end up missing not having Edwapa's kill chop on here? Did Necron end up playing out? That's what I want to hear too, because I've seen lists too good without Necron. So I want to know how he's doing with that Necron there as well. Another thing I think would have been interesting and didn't bring Necron. Would Zagstruck with those Storm Boys be interesting for a different kind of speed and pressure, as Necron seems more like a reactive thing, and everything else is just consistently applying pressure. So I'd like to hear if him just directly disagree with me or anything like that, just because. And is he yelling at me? It seems like someone's yelling at me. Hold on. Well, no, we'll talk about it. We'll talk about it. It seems like one of me boys is trying to fight. No, I'm just kidding. So, what is this? Burner Boys in the truck? You acknowledge this already, right?
Yeah, I said you can't Overwatch with Burner Boys.
Explain.
Yeah, because firing deck is only in your own shooting phase. And Overwatch says you cannot rules that apply to the shooting phase to a unit. You can only use the weapons on it. So you couldn't activate firing deck during the Overwatch because firing deck is only active during your own turn.
Yeah, so don't let people use Overwatch on you while they're in vehicles either, right? At least not with the units that are inside of it. Sorry about that. And hold on, let's pull this one up. Chris, read it.
Necrons versus Eldar.
No, the next one. Sorry, I put it up on mine. Come on.
Sorry, I'm watching the stream. It's like just an FYI, it's McAfee. Just like McAfee, just like the famous punter.
Yeah. Hey, just so you know, I'm an illiterate green skin. All right. No, I'm just kidding. No, I think you're correcting me, dude. And feel free to correct me on any of your guys' names, guys. That's why I usually let Chris and David lead when it comes to reading, because I will butcher your names and make you hate me, and then we'll start fighting.
He'll take a chopper to it.
I'll take a chopper to your name, literally. All right, my bad.
Yeah, it's all good.
McAfee. No, let me talk to me, boy. John McAfee versus Necrons or Eldar. I'd wear turn 1 charge. Yeah, right. Maybe even guard 2 there, huh? Or guard always getting beat up. So yeah. So yeah, guys, these are one things we wanted to show this list. This is the closest thing we got to like a speed wall against some love, and it did really good. He got 13th place at the event with this list. Boop, boop, boop. Should I move up over here? Right. This was his scoring potential, his points, his metrics. If you guys want to take a quick look at that, he did end up losing. If we can talk about it, is He lost to GSC. I'm not gonna pull the list because we're gonna probably crash and we're gonna move on already to the hobby part of the stream as we're already pretty far in. But he lost to GSC, Chris, correct?
Yeah, that was his first.
Yeah, that was his first matchup. As you can see, how he lost to GSC, and then his next matchup was Knights that he lost, right?
I think Knights and GSC were the ones.
His Knights and GSC were his actual losses with that list, guys. When I spoke about before why that could be, as you could see, these small units of his knobs and bikers probably want a position. Man? He could probably cut an angle on those with those bikers, kill them. They didn't directly kill when they ran into him. The Knights have high damage, quality shots and punches. Punch up those bikers, punch out those knob units. He doesn't have much less left. He was quite elite. So I can see how he lost to that. And then as for GSC, they just have so much stuff, and they actually charge Orks pretty well with their high damage and quality of attacks. They have weird feel no pains. They mimic us in some ways as well. They're a little too efficient right now, but that's okay. That's just what the game is. Luckily, there's not a lot of them around. And casually, statistically, we actually do well into them. Like, if people don't play the most effective version of GSC and practice, Orc players still just run up and beat the crap out of them because our strength and our ability to wound them with volume overcomes a lot of their profiles as a whole, right? That's the same for Eldar as a whole, guys, too. And Guard too. But Orcs, because of our strength and volume of attacks, when we run into our counterpoints and Xenos, we tend to just beat the crap out of them with our skirmishing units, and that's one of our strengths. Okay? So, Chris, you can say something else because I'm going to move on. All right, guys, as for now, that's going to be the end of discussing the Nemesis part of this, right? We're going to still move on and talk about the hobby stream. We're going to show pictures right now. But this is discussing the Nemesis. Feel free to give us feedback as we talk about the theme related to this topic, right? Maybe some lists you wanted to hear about, armies you wanted to hear about, or combos you want to know about as a whole. We don't want to just rant on everything, even though we went a little longer than I thought on that topic. As for now, we're going to show the pictures from our Discord. Let's go. Shout out to the Discord people for sharing their pictures. I greatly appreciate it. You guys are way better than me when it comes to hobbying and painting. So this always inspires me and encourages me as I'm a peasant. What are you laughing for?
I'm saying because
yeah,
very much laughing at you.
Okay.
Because
what?
Because your secret little like hobbit in the corner. You got Nick over there just painting those awesome.
Oh yeah, we know about that. And then as for this, so let me hold on. I'll put this up. Let's see what's going on. The Fat Man. What up, everyone? Whoa! That's what's up. You get. All right, so now we're going to talk about we're going to show some pictures here, guys. So hopefully I navigate this well. David doesn't come over here and start chopping me in the head with a chopper as I try to show these pictures. So let's see. Move on. So this is, first green skin pictures we're scrolling is the Savage Man. That's what this is for, guys. This is my first time seeing this. Let me see if I can get this banner. Can I? I wonder if I can move this banner.
Also, give Eddie some love for just trying this out to begin with. This is.
Oh yeah, I'm a peasant trying to figure out how to use these things. So I was gonna try to move the banner so we can show these pics, and then take the banner down.
Oh, go to brand.
There we go. Just trying to attack. Sorry guys, I'm gonna clear some of this up so we can get a better look at the pictures. Yeah. Bam. Still feel free to comment. As I still want to talk to you and everything, but I want people to get a quality look at their pictures.
No.
So this is the Savage Man. So the Savage Man giving us one of his big mechs with a KFF right here. He posted this on our Discord, giving him some look. I like the blue scheme, guys. It's not a death skull. He didn't say that. Really in favor of the kind of like metalish, rusty, metallic look. And he did a great job with the base, giving it a nice thematic look into there.
Whoa.
Oh, David's here right now.
Yeah, I love that blue. He did a great job at that. The light just hits it perfect where it just kind of almost glows.
Yes, sir. So great job on that. Feel free to show more. These are just hobby progress pics, guys. You'll see it progressively as it goes on. Now we're going into Dagger. Dagger showed us a few pictures. Dagger has some crazy stuff on his IG. Can I get closer with this, or is this the closest I can make it?
So,
is that right? Oops.
I would probably.
No. Here's Daggers, one of his posted. This is his, as you can see, all Daggers with the Z. This actually is handle if you guys want to actually go look at him and his exquisite collection. But he posts these on Discord just so he can flex on me because I can't paint even close to this or kit bash anything related to this. Really like that head. It's really disturbing and awesome.
No, because since we're sharing it on here,
Let's go.
it's limited to your screen. Unless you won't be able to see the comments, but you could access. So,
Okay.
oh, actually, this.
All right. So here's daggers. Let's go. He gave us a lot of pictures, guys. This is how it looked before it was kit bashed together, so you can get an idea in the background of how his stompin looked. Pretty sick. Here's his gas. He put some giant like plane propeller jets on the back of it. Probably his mech dread, or maybe this. I don't know if this is his fork or not. But these are. He kept a great scheme of it being yellow, but it's not too yellow to where it looks cartoonish. Very sick job by daggers here.
It's crazy how the paint just brings it all together. If you go back real quick.
It makes it look so beat up too.
Yeah, like the kit bash like doesn't look that impressive, but once the paint comes on, it just comes to life.
Yeah, it looks stompo with some battle wagon bits and some random other stuff thrown out there.
And I love that jump back on Gaz. Could you imagine if you could fly in the game? It'd be insane.
Love this because they do have a kind of like generators and everything like that. These are some close-up pictures, some close-up shots. I like how its head turns. Very disturbing. Very disturbing. Chris, what do you think about this? What's up? How are you handling this, World Eater? What's up?
I love those. Those are the ones we saw last week too. I love those.
Yeah, he showed just one, not these pictures, but he did just show one of these last week.
I love the overall theme. I mean, just the paint job is just superb. Like itself. Like if there's one thing they have,
It's basic.
The models is crazy with the paint job on this. What puts it over the top.
So this is pro level, guys. I'm not gonna show any of my models because I paint like a Neanderthal. So it's fine. Now we're moving over to one of me gets, one of me boys, one of me knobs. WAAAGH coming in here showing us his blue squig. I have a very similar blue squig just like that. I love his orange theme. Sorry if I scream to the mic. I have an orange theme. I love the orange. Not all my stuff's orange, but I love an orange theme in my Orks. Really blends very well. It's dark, kind of more of like an olive green skin. Very different to mine, as I like to go for more like a cartoonish green personally. But he did a great job with that. Everything is distinct. Looks a little worn down. Very badass. That's awesome. And those lips, huh? Oh, that's a different look for the lips. Almost like he wants to kiss, though. No, my
like Joker lips.
Yeah, Joker lips. It is creepy though. It's kind of freaking me out. Or like a little intimidating to a certain extent. Here's the same knob. I just wanted to show it all around, guys, because it's funny in the Discord I posted mine too, and we were like similar. His is better probably a little bit, but very similar. This is actually not WAAAGH. I don't think. Is it? Is this WAAAGH? Yeah, actually, this was still WAAAGH. Sorry, I'm lying. WAAAGH. This is your opposite with the orange. Here's another one of his Squig Hog boys. Work in progress, as he was telling me, but I didn't want to show everyone because it was work in progress. Looks really good. I like the scales. It's funny because I actually have a very light blue scale like that on my beast stagger board as well. But my squigs are a different color. Not red either though. So that's another WAAAGH Squig Hog boy. The weapon definition, he did a really good job on the shading there, or on the null and oil type positioning here. It doesn't look saturated. Everything's distinct. Good job there. And here is his Captain Bad Rub. So he has that actual model, and he painted it very, very well. I was asking him to someone to post this guy on Discord because I don't actually have the actual model, and sometimes they're not painted that well as they're old resin models or metal. So, but WAAAGH did a great job right here with this part. Great job. WAAAGH, appreciate it. Oops. WAAAGH, he hit all the banners. Yeah, you see the beaky helmet right there really sticking out. I like that he made it an ultramarine one, so it sticks. Really awesome base that he chose to use there. The teeth, the really sick snag gun. Oh, great job. This is probably one of the best Captain Balrogs I've seen painted. Most of the time they're done really poorly. Here's John McAfee. Did I say that right? Okay.
I think that's pretty good. I mean, I don't know if he spelled his name right on the slide, but he said his name right at least.
I'm pretty sure I misspelled that because I'm a Neanderthal. But there we go. He's showing his high progress. Here's his kit bash kill rigs from John. So here's one of his actual ones, right? And then he has one that he kit bashed together using trucks, using some toy dinosaurs, maybe some battle wagon bits as well. I'm not sure. I like that he threw a weird boy on top of that, right? And the weird boy's a little higher up. Go to the next picture. Here's another side by side with another version of his kit bash. You can see he kept going, so you could have 3. I like that. I really like people who kit bash their monsters when they have duplicates of orcs because that's really orc you to do. Here's another model he shared that is pictured up. The Gorgons.
I love that. I love the just the round, the fatness to it. Just looks so fun.
Look at this, dude. This is so fun, dude. This is so just odd looking as a whole. I want to like hit it like a whack-a-mole and fight it. I don't know, dude. It brings the green skin out of me. Look at that banner though. Goodness, what's up with that, dude? Did you paint this? I was gonna ask you this. You paint this, or where is this from? This is amazing. There's right there alongside Dagger's crazy looking models. Here's another Gorkanaut. I don't actually own a Gorkanaut, that's why I took a second to say that. But for Mork, but this model looks great. I like that you kept it to a thematic yellow. The horns stick out, the face, you get it look really beaten up. It's not just bright yellow. You can see that there's kind of battle damage worn down onto it. Whenever anybody does that with yellow, they do a great job because I would just paint it like it was a yellow marker. What'd you say? Verify what?
John's going in saying who had that round Stampa. It was $1 Billion Clown Farm Stampa.
Oh, this right here?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, Billion Clown. Okay, I know who that guy is. That's cool. I wonder if that's his direct, and that's not a stomp. I don't know if he's running that as stomp, or is he running that as what it used to be. They had a model like that back in the day. That was like a car gas or something like that. Oh, it jumped out. Okay, now we're here at Tau Beast. Boom. So Tau Beast, this is a beast boss on Squigosaur that he kit bashed. I'm sure he kit bashed this when it was hard to get the kits all the time, guys. A very freaking cool model here by him. I use the same kind of AOS model, and I use it to make a war boss in Mega Armor, though. Mm-hmm. So I really like that, and I like that he put what is that, an Eldar in there at pointy ears? He said, wait. He said, no, that's mine. Oh, the Stampas. Which one's mine? Okay, well, you know what? We're confusing them all because I can't use this at all. I'm a monkey. Okay. John does the dinosaurs.
Yeah. So that's John McAfee's dinosaur.
Okay, good. My bad. I saw your friends.
Wait. Whose name did you give it? Oh,
I gave it to Tau Beast, my other friend. Oops, stealing your stuff, man. I feel like stealing your stuff.
I think this is just a beat up on John McAfee's stream from any over
here.
I guess literally can't say his name. I can't give him credit for his stuff.
You can't say his name correct. I guess this is a nemesis stream on you. That's it, dude. We're gonna have to fight on the online Warhammer game. No, I'm kidding. I never played that version.
TTS.
The TTS, yeah. Sorry. So forgive me if I mislabeled this incorrectly, as I'm a Neanderthal and I'm still doing the organization, right? This is our first time using this to this extent either, and preemptively putting these in slides. So yeah, forgive me for I am sinful, and if you don't want to forgive me, then we can fight about it. Woo! All right, so
I'm the table.
Very nice, Mom.
I'm the table.
No, I mean a person. I'm just kidding. So another beast boss on this actual beast boss on Squigosaur. Dude, look at that color, and I like that he really had made the scales stick out and everything like that, as most people don't. Like, really emphasize the scaling, the metal pits, everything like that on these monsters, right? Hold on, let me look at some of these chats, guys, as I couldn't see them when I was first showing things. Fat Man, thanks for commenting, Fat Man. I love paint scheme. It's so clean. He posted his army in another Discord, and I fell in love. Are you sharing your paint scheme? No, I'm kidding. Of course, dude. You have to show that everywhere. I show that off everywhere. I'm glad he put his handle in there. That way people can get love on that, right? So thanks for shouting him out, and thanks for sharing that, because that definitely deserves it. Hopefully, we're one of the first people that showed it on the YouTube channel and showed it on the live stream, though. What's up? Very clean beast boss done here, though. Want to give him some love, too. Oh, and then last but not least, we do have our channel, Big Mech, Brandon. Gave some different, instead of just putting kill tanks, he showed us some other models. So that's pretty cool.
He has other models?
He has other models than Megalons and kill tanks. Yes, he does. And that's what these are right now. He said it's a cowboy and Indian theme of models he's putting together. As you can see, these are some looters, crazy looking looters for sure, with these gigantic guns. Really, really cool. This was the fun part about 3D printing, guys, right? Is that because orcs are fun to kit bash, to 3D print, they can fit it in anything. There's profiles everywhere. Orcs get a lot of love, creative army. No one's ever going to give you a hard time for that. But yeah, Brandon always loves pointing out
Yeah, never forget, every kit is an orc kit.
Every kit can be an orc kit if you think hard enough.
Use that long energy.
Here's some of his Indians right here. Fantastic, fantastic. Great job. They're painted really well too, dude. He's such a good painter. So he's playing with unique models, he's printing, and then he's painting them very well too, right? If it was me, I airbrush them. When I had when I 3D printed a bunch of models, dude, I was like airbrush trying to figure it out because I was just getting overwhelmed. I had so many. I don't like being behind at all on my hobby collection. Almost all my orcs are already fully painted. Not all of them though. And I need some more. But that's why it's like when I get stuff, if I don't paint it myself, I have a friend that I pay to paint some of my models because he paints way better than me. And I haven't gotten better, especially on big models. I've been trying. So here's another one. Some more of his models. Cowboy and Indian theme. Really freaking cool. Remember, guys, if you want to talk about anything in general, at this point, you guys can talk about anything now. You want to ask us about lists, combinations, talk about ideas, bring all that stuff up, guys. We're just jumping into these pictures right away for fun because I asked everybody to point these pictures out to give us pictures, and they're doing it.
I mean, I have a question for chat. Like, for each of you guys individually, what have guys been your toughest matchups to play against the 10th edition so far?
I see a lot of people in this store running a lot of beast snaggers still. Are you guys getting motivated to run more mech units or maybe even those nods on bikes? Uh-oh. Here's Brandon's nod on Smash a Squig. Not that guy. This guy right here.
Is it Brandon's or is it John's? Are you sure?
This is Brandon. It's not John. John is not yours. I think. No, I'm just kidding. It's definitely Brandon because he has the green theme that he showed it out, and I like that he did green on green. I think it takes a very adventurous, risky, painted skill painter to actually pull out green on green for orcs. So very sick. And then this one, I like he has it doing a wheelie. Let's go, let's go. Wheelie up in this. All right, Chris Tech.
Is that the last picture?
That was the last one from our pictures. I went through it kind of fast, maybe a little too fast. I appreciate everybody. I'm gonna let's see. I'm find a picture that I'm see what I want to leave on here while I rant, as I like to rant. A lot of these guys are way better than my models, though.
Well, I don't have much to say besides just thanks for being with me today. Since I'm like the occasional just third monkey that jumps on here. So
I think I'm gonna leave.
It's good to see you guys all again. It's been a week or two.
Sorry. That here we go. I'm gonna leave me Captain Fabric on for a little bit. So guys, as a whole, what we've been seeing is we've been following the orc meta, right? And there's the meta as a whole. A lot of people really, really want to shoot. And when it comes to armies that just want to shoot, because we run MSU, because we have speed, because we have cheap transports, we can take control of the table, take out his countercharging unit, and just play that slow attrition rate game. As for armies that can give us an issue, seems to be other melee armies because they want to take the attrition rate away from us because of the new fight phase ability, and because those can be so swingy. We can see that that's kind of becoming something that orc players might have to keep an eye out for. We're always worried about getting shot off the table. On paper, that doesn't seem to be what causes us to lose for the most part. At the top tables, possibly. But as your casual games, it seems like people are actually losing when it comes to other melee armies.
Yeah, the only thing I've been kind of like bummed about when it comes to 10th edition orc lists is you don't see any 20 man mobs of anything anymore.
Oh, but you were not paying attention to the live stream because we did see the Rune. Well, I forgot his last name. Last week, we had someone who placed third place at a GT that ran 60 boys, and they were 3 20-man units.
What characters did he bring for support?
He brought more bosses and weird boys, and they came board.
Interesting.
Yeah, so instead of actually trying to stand and walk, what he did is he teleported around the battlefield with the weird boys, and then really relying on scoring the secondaries and playing the mission, standing on there with OC. And then he ran.
That reminds me of the good old days of 8th edition.
Yeah, I mean, his list really inspired. I really made sure I point out and emphasize on that list so people can see that you don't have to just play these snaggers and just play certain ways. You can still run mobs. So Christian didn't even know about that. See?
Honestly, John, when it comes to building a list to favor more against GSC or Knights, I'd go towards Knights.
So yeah, my buddy started playing GSC and was asking for Imperial Guard bits, and I was like, oh, I have a ton. I brought my bit box to our local game store, and everyone's like, "Holy crap, you have a ton of bits." Yeah, because you're an orc player, right? I'm like, yeah, because orcs, because all bits are orc bits. Exactly. It was an example of running the lids, running all the bits that you get, guys. Right? I have a bunch of bits. I had to get rid of some of them. So John, Kristen, now you want to respond to John?
Yeah, like I just said, definitely focus more on the Knights versus the GSC is kind of just an impossible matchup just because they have that so much respawn. We just know they're gonna get touched in some balance update. So I'd rather tech more into Knights, which are probably more popular than GSC because it's a more likely matchup that you'll see.
Yeah, for sure. Even though, let's see, you think you'll see GSC more? You said?
No, I think you'll see Knights more, and you shouldn't worry about GSC because if you run into it, then so be it. But it's an army that's going to get changed anyways down the road. Versus Knights, they've already gotten their first little bump, the little nerf, so they might not touch them for a little bit longer.
Yeah,
and they're more popular just in general.
Knights seem to be that gatekeeper sometimes, and if you don't bring the tools and consider Knights, they do tend to kind of dismantle an orc list that was just going for scoring, right? There's a list we showed last week that was running all just a small iron unit of boy. It ran 2 biker units, 3 storm boy units, 6 trucks. It just went for all the MSU that it could to take over the board, and it scored 100, 100, and then it went against Knights and scored like 30 points because Knights are just like, nah, man, none of those things threaten me, and they just challenge them like that. So you do want to consider them as they are everywhere in the meta. They're very common. They were played very often, and we do have tools and ways to beat them. So teching into that is a great way to do it, right? And it will help you overall in most matchups and most events. What do you run? Well, if you've ever heard me before, you see that I'm a fan of knobs. So I'll typically always have the knobs on my list, right? It more is, what am I sticking to for now? Squighog Boys, we all know is good. I like to look at them as more of like an MSU unit because they have decent OC. They bother people's maths. They keep people stuck in combat longer. As I'm going through and looking at all these different things, these different lists, I know I had stuff like kill tanks are doing excellent. I'm going to have to print some Grot Mega Tanks. I know this sounds funny, but I do want some Grot Mega Tanks because I'm thinking the rocket spam is going to go. So to answer your list directly, right, I'm thinking there's the MSU style of orcs, right? Go for a bunch of different stuff, have a scalpel unit come in and kill you, and then there's a mid-size mechanized list where you bring a bunch of different kind of durability between Mega Knobs, Killicans, and then you bring a bunch of rockets to help with your supporting your shooting support, or you bring kill tanks for shooting support. Me personally, based off what I own, it's easier for me to run diverse MSU speed lists. So even that Knob Warbiker list is interesting to me, as I do have war bikers on boss on war bikes, and I do have a ton of bikers, and so I do like that as a whole. As for what I play against, though, in my local meta, we do have demon players, we do have a lot of League of Voltan players, and we have a lot of melee armies as a whole, or not as a whole, but I play personally against melee armies often between Christian and David and other people I play. But as our local GT, a lot of people are running gunline armies. So I'm going to have to find a balance as to just punchy enough to where if I do fight into somebody else that is punchy, get enough scoring potential that someone can't shoot me off the table and me not have enough points to make it back. So I'm trying to find that balance right now, and it seems to be in speed and punchy MSU, which is why that Knob biker units were really interesting to me. So that's a new concept I'm going to have to take into play. And then let me pull up on here. Are you gonna say something?
No, I'm gonna head up.
Oh, you are?
Do
you think we've been doing we're okay?
Yeah.
That's my volume, man.
And just guys, David's here. I was talking to David.
Yeah.
He's ended up taking a trip to Italy in what is it, 3 or 4 weeks?
September.
In September. So that's why I've been practicing going in here, trying to do the list by myself. That's why you seen the quality was a little odd. We're doing it now before we get even more subs and more people involved. That way I can keep good momentum. So thank you for bearing with me and dealing with me with the drops and everything, as I'm going to have to run some of this alone for a little bit while David's out doing some work in Italy. But that's okay because he's going to play Warhammer in Italy. I'm just kidding. Let me go on to some more of these comments. So let's see. The GSA player is Alec McDougall. Okay, yeah, I know that, guys. You want to play? Okay, well, yeah, probably don't tailor into him because you're going to have a hard time regardless. David? Oh, nothing else? War Boss on bike. Here we go. There we go. So Dominic Kidwell. Chris, you want to read this or what?
Yeah. So total distance for the War Boss on bike is 14 because of his enhancement. And you got the use a strat. 3+2 advance. I actually think doesn't he auto advance 6? So you don't need an average 3 on the advance. You average 6 on the advance.
Last I checked, yeah, during the he can do that once per game. I believe. Let me check real quick.
Yeah, and then 7 plus average 7-inch 7.5 charge. Yeah, so 28. Honestly, I think his average is actually over 30. But yeah, that basically just shoots as far as some guys. He runs as far as some guys shoot like las cannons.
Yeah, right.
So he's a mobile las cannon, put it that way.
And he brings the knobs with him. And that's kind of a small kind of profile. It can actually hide and position pretty well. And the small arms fire from the bikers could help with some screens too, right? So it says each time it makes an advance, do not make an advance roll until the end of the phase. Add 6 to the movement of that model's in that unit.
Yeah.
So there you go.
Even further, add an extra 3 inches, 31 average.
And we know now, based off what we've seen, like we said at the official GW event, is that people are considering, hey, these guys are intended to be able to get enhancements, so we're going to run them that way. Therefore, as a whole, at least for us in our channel and our community, we're going to continue that trend. They're going to be getting, we're going to consider them, they're going to always get those enhancements and have access to them. Yeah, exactly. But the threat range right there, guys, is what makes people think. 28-inch threat range. Where am I going to go? What am I going to do? Can I get the initiative? Oh, my soft units. Oh, man, my units that I typically am going to try to screen with these other guys. What am I going to do? They're going to turn 1 charge me. Is he going to turn 1 charge me? And if he does, he gets their ability. And as you've seen in that list we showed before, that guy was banking on him because he gave himself a 4 feel no pain for that war biker. So he was like, yeah, I'm not going to just die. I'm not going to just die. And then get I like that. And then the consolidation, the extra movement, dealing with those GSC blips. Yep, exactly. I like how you're thinking. Great job. And I like that the community is liking bikers because a lot of people were just like, oh, bikers don't have the damage potential. Bikers, point per point, PPP, or whatever. No shout out to people that use that. You're still smart. Obviously, it's relevant. I'm just saying, like, it's not everything. And people are starting to notice that. Sometimes being able to take over the table and threaten with different ways. And speed is really what matters, and that odd durability of a good toughness, good amount of wounds, decent armor save, at least for orcs.
Yeah, as Art of War says, 40k is won and lost in the movement phase.
Oh yeah, for sure. And that's something we learned right away. Movement is what really determines games. And you can see that these lists that are doing good, guys, they're bringing like Storm Boys, they're bringing Bikers, they're bringing Squig Hog Boys. The only list that I ever seen do moderately good with slow units was that Killakin unit that we discussed once. And later we found out that the player was putting gas in a truck. So I don't always want to recommend that, as most people aren't doing that.
Eddie, is Here We Go infantry only? Can you use it on bikes?
Are we talking about? No, I don't think you can.
The strat.
Let me look. No, that's infantry only, I believe.
Yeah, infantry only. So yeah, he still auto advances 6, so that makes up for the average of +2, +2.
Yeah. And what was this next comment, Chris? If you want to read that.
I mean, there was just Baron, you mentioned 3-0 with your lists. Did you mention your list in chat yet, or no?
Right here. You can also show it in Discord. Remember, guys, if you ever have lists, we can discuss a little bit, read them real quick, so we have some more context. If you want to post your list in Discord, and then I can read it directly, so we understand what we're talking about. But yeah, he said, I'm currently 3-0 with this list, but I want to change a couple units. Unit that's gonna deleted by those battle line units. 4d6 plus 12 demo charges hurt. Oh yeah, from the jackals. Yeah, those guys are they definitely do hurt. Those guys end up doing way more damage than you expect. But that's kind of GSC as a whole. Is all those little units end up doing way more damage.
They're just undercosted right now.
They're undercosted right now. But they seem to go back and forth on that. Just like GW, you know. It's like, oops, I didn't mean that you guys are doing that. Yeah, and here we go, as of course for just infantry. And then, let's see. You said, when do you usually WAAAGH? So, if we had to go on average, right, what ends up being the average is you're going to WAAAGH turn 2 most of the time. Now, what the real question is, are you WAAGHing to perform offense? Or are you WAAGHing reactively because you understand you're about to take a hit, right? Some of the best players actually consider, I'm going to WAAGH here because I really need that 5-up invuln right now. right? So some people are like, oh, I want to hold this because I want to go punch you. Oh, blah, blah, blah. Don't think always like that. Sometimes that other person is going to just get the initiative, going to have to shoot you, you win second, stuff like that. You might have to think like, you know what? Yeah, I'm one because I need that 5 up intel, and you're really going to only be able to hurt me right now before I cover that distance and get to you. So you can make that up in that kind of way. And also having these units that are already fast, help it so that they can continue the momentum once you already considered the wall. That way you're not just strictly relying on the wall, right? Because for like Christian likes to say, he doesn't love the wall rule as a whole because sometimes the game is lost and won just by that one rule if people time it so incorrectly, and that can lead to some feel bad moments. But yeah, as for when we do it, I think as a whole for Orc players, they end up doing it in turn 2. It's more like, why are you doing it, right? Do you have something to say, Chris?
Nope. No, that was good.
Here we go. Yep, it's only infantry. Also, good list can redeploy the blip, bait you, and pull you out of place. Yeah, GSC. That's what I like about GSC too. Let me see. I'm gonna check Discord. I don't know if you guys hit me up on Discord yet. Just make sure. Oh, you guys are posting some more. Oh, I think someone just made us into a meme.
Me and you?
Yeah, I think someone just made us into a meme.
What do we do?
Oh my goodness. What is this?
Is it you just messing with John's name?
About world leaders. All right, so you trying to fight me, McAfee? That's fantastic. It's so funny, dude. I'm gonna become a meme with that face. I do have that face, like I'm in distress right there, huh? Goodness. Okay. Now I see you guys. Okay. All right, chat. I see the smoke you guys are bringing up. I like that though. I appreciate it. That was my first time making a comment, and guess what? I really did have that face on. Huh? Yeah, me and Christian talk about it all the time because I haven't played with against his world leaders yet, as I've been doing a lot of my games into Tyranids as I'm preparing. So as a whole, guys, I'm not gonna jump to a tangent, but we are trying to get these battle report reviews in. That's what's gonna tomorrow. Me and Christian are gonna play a game, and I'm going to take pictures of the game, and then we can end up talking about that as well. So we can talk about directly how my games are going, some lists you guys want to see. I'm going to start favoring a little bit more into some speed and MSU, as that's what I have more of. That's fully painted, and because I like playing that way. At least until I print some of these ground mega tanks, possibly, as I really do want to use some of those. I do have some killer cans that I've been looking at, running Kaz. I do have a good amount of mega knobs. It's just that me, how I traditionally play 40K, when I play Orks, is I think about having a lot of stuff that just dies. I never really play elite Orks. Yeah, I personally don't commonly play elite Orks. Whenever I think of Orks, I think of like playing like a Russian, or thinking, Russians, or thinking about like a Japanese person during the World War II and the Japanese Empire. So I didn't mean to be insulting to them, with Ukraine being done right now. So yeah, that's what I was saying. And then John, yeah, I see you out there. You get all right. Let me see. If I was more tech savvy, I might have shown that meme next week just because you put us on blast like that. As for, we are going to do like a meme kind of thing. We're going to show up the meme, the #1 meme in our Discord as our Discord grows. And then also, like I said, I like to show the hobby progress because the Orc community, that is a part of being an Orc player, guys. Not just what the meta is, not just what's best, not just what Math Hammer says we should be doing. The fact that people kit bash some awesome models, the fact that everybody paints better than me is something that I also want to show to the world too, right? What?
Show that everyone paints better than you?
Yeah, I like to. How about I like to enjoy the fact that everybody paints better than me. I like to show that. So yeah. As for guys, as we're coming to a close here, as I don't want to keep you guys all hanging here for no reason, as we cover the topic I want to discuss with the Orks and Custodes, feel free to give us feedback as well on how we could have been better, where we can be a bit more precise. Comments are right now while we're in the chat. Like I said, I'm going to play a game tomorrow against Christian, and we're going to probably take pictures of the battlefield. I use official GW terrain here. We do have official GW runes, so you'll be seeing that. I'll be posting some of those pictures a little bit ahead of maybe in Discord of maybe the matchups and the armies, how they look. And then we'll come back here, probably talk about that next Friday, especially give it some time because I might get more games in than just one because I do need to play a couple more games. And I need to beat up world leaders because I don't like seeing that number of 27%. So I have to figure out how to kind of crump them games too.
Just join the RTT so you can play that number.
Oh yeah, and I'm gonna have to prepare for an RTT event in my area, this near Chicagoland area. We get a lot of competitive play. A lot of really good guys out here. Fred Fortman is who won the tournament that Christian was at last event, right? If you guys know who Fred Fortman is, you guys are using some of these competitive player names. And also we have Kevin Leonard, the demon player. He's also someone that we regularly see at tournaments and such like that. So we have to consider those kind of matchups. We have to consider Deathwatch. We have to consider demons. We have to consider Custodes. We have to consider tyrannins as in our local community, and then some gunline armies too. So that's what I'm thinking about when I'm making my list, right? I don't tailor it to anybody. I tailor it to my community, and my community can be up to like 40 different players, right? So that's how you guys should be thinking too. Don't hurt someone's feelings by tailoring it to your friend. Think about your community as a whole. Are a lot of people shooting me? Do I have any armies that fight me? What are some of my data sheets that are going to end up being not really applicable because of this, and this, right? Let's see another comment here. Did Christian want to read this?
Do you custom booster blasters by chance?
I like custom booster blasters. I have been sneaking them on my list when I make some of these lists with bikers and such, because I want to see if I can hinder these units that are going to counter punch me, make them not reliable, punch out Squig Hog Boys or punch out Mega Knobs. So I do think there's a place for them.
Yeah, that's my favorite buggy, honestly.
Yeah.
It's not -1 to hit. It can be. You see how many armies have the strap -1 to hit, and they pop that stuff almost religiously. The fact that we get X to it too can be clutch at some moments.
We have to work a little bit for it, but the -1 to hit is a factor, right? Because consider our other durabilities, right? The feel no pain, the high toughness, us getting a bunch of inbones. That's where something like, hey, I think that unit's gonna come countercharge me, -1 to hit on you. I don't like that. Yeah, I think that's what is gonna be another factor with Orks. Have we seen a list competitively with that yet? Not a bunch. I have seen a custom booster blaster though on a tournament list that was a winning tournament list. It's really just about finding that where you can fit the points in, as now that everything goes by fives and everything, it gets kind of weird, and they're sitting at 85 points, which is the only weird part in my opinion. They do also have the flamers. I own at least 3 of those guys. They're all team, so I really like them. I always have, yeah, so he's saying he always runs it, and that -1 to hit has saved him for the, okay, exactly what we were just talking about. The -1 to save them for the unit that's going to interrupt or countercharge him, and to keeping his unit alive longer. Yeah, because you're stacking the different durability traits we have that aren't obvious when you're the enemy player going into us. You're going to say, look, I feel no pain. Ooh, I have this.
And then you stack that -1 to wound, -1 to hit, -1 to wound, that unit's doing nothing to you.
Yeah, they're like, oh. If only we had reduced damage by 1. Oh. I'm thinking for us as Ork players. So thanks for asking that, Pyro Bubble. I appreciate any kind of comments like that as they get our juices flowing and our brains flowing as Ork players. They really get us happy in this, right? This is another thing Artemis brought up. I think Death Dreads are a sleeper unit. I'm not sure if they're a sleeper because of the points, right? Not that I'm like trying to talk anybody down. I'm just saying we're disagreeing because we can agree and disagree. Is the only reason I say that is because so many people have anti-tank fire because they're stagnant. They're considering Knights. They're considering Eldar. They're considering Space Marine players who are bringing a lot of gladiators. So a lot of people are tyrannid monsters are already innately bringing stuff that can pop your Death Jet really easily. And it is a one-phase model right now because the shooting is just unreliable unless you're bringing like double flamers on it. And even then, it's a lot of points for just some flamers and maybe combat yo might get.
I mean, but I gotta commend Artemis. I mean, he was here at the very beginning of the stream when the first comments mentioned Death Dread, so he waited 3 hours to bring those things back up. So he's been here all that time. So I mean,
actually, I wanted to re-show that comment. That was I wanted to bring that comment back up because it was still relevant to you.
Oh, you talking
about. And then John said, "No, I hate 100." I know, dude. See what I mean? I disagreed. Bully? No, I'm just kidding. No, it's better. That's what I'm saying. I'd rather bring Death Ritter or Brigand. Death Ritter or Brigand. No, I do like the killer cams at 155, 50 for now. Still a little much considering how slow they move. But hey,
I would consider them at like
rockets are decent.
Maybe like 135,
100,
110,
135 for 3. They have 5 wounds. And they have a decent little armor save with all the AP reduction. You don't have to worry about the 5-up info. I think that's what catches people with the killer cans. The spreading of wounds, the fact that we have access to a bunch of damage tree with them, and then the fact that with all the AP reduction that there's been now, they're still going to be getting good armor saves and they get light cover.
I just think the issue is with 40K in the hull, you don't see any light vehicles because light vehicles get taken out so easily.
Except for Orks.
Yeah, except for trucks. 50 point
trucks, killed killer cans, and then the ground mega tanks. I think those are three at least that Orks have access to. If you're not going to go off and also start saying ground tanks.
So those vehicles in that 80 to 150 point range, they're really not common right now because they're not durable enough for their points. So either you have to be super low point cost or just incredible durability at high point cost with the medium vehicles. They're just the weakest vehicle platform right now, if you ask me.
Besides for Orks, which is why people aren't tailored into that. They're tailored into the high expensive units where they put that D6 plus 1 damage into it. Boom, I'm happy. Compared to, ooh, I ran a kill a can through my last cannons. Maybe I killed one, didn't get my points returned, such like that. So I think Orks are kind of somewhere in between, and the mega tank is somewhere again 100 points for a lot of rockets. I don't have one yet, but I like that people keep bringing them up, right?
So a unit, John's is running a unit of 3. Unit of 3 what?
I think he's talking about killer cans.
Maybe killer cans are good.
Yeah,
we've seen someone that's their unit 1 now.
Yeah, we've seen people running 2 6-man units and then gas, but like I said, that guy did end up putting gas in the truck. But a part of me is putting killer cans on my list for this purpose. It's like, do I want to run killer cans and flash kits and then everything else be the speed that I'm talking about? That way I do have some scoring potential. The lists get a little expensive, and I don't like getting elite on elite with Orks. But this is along the lines of what I'm thinking, and like I said, tomorrow we'll have the game. And you'll see what kind of list stand that we're running, and that'll be fun. And I do want to run, give them a try because I've seen someone else try them, and I don't want to be left out on this killer can thing because I was talking them down. But on the whole, they did great. So guys, we'll go about 9 more minutes because I want to get to that 2:30 just because I'm weird like that. I like those numbers. But yeah, to get in your last questions, maybe post in the Discord if you want to discuss anything or talk about one of your lists. If you're going to go to an RTT, here's the thing, guys. I'm talking directly to you in the community. One, if you're going to go to an RTT, you're going to go to an event, feel free to get some feedback, and then let everybody know how you do. I can end up reviewing it, and you might end up being on the stream like Christian was. We pull up your list and discuss it a bit. We did it already for Brandon. We can do it for you. Obviously, we want you to be doing pretty well, though, because we're sending this out to hundreds, thousands of views sometimes, and we want people to be able to reference this and think, okay, how does it apply to me more than not, instead of, oh, in my community, I got lucky because these guys are really bad. That's why we want to make sure it's like, if you did get in, like Christian, we didn't go over everything he did, but he at least got 5th place. Was a 5th place?
Yeah.
So he did at least did the top 5, so he did get a nice little shout out, but we didn't go through all his matchups. Compared to like when Brandon went in, he got 2nd place. He was going against some really hard people, and he had a very unique list, so we'll spend more time in that too. But don't be scared to send it, and then send pictures. Give yourself some love. We'll give you love. Give the community some love. And we like doing that because we don't base all of our opinions off of the top 1 to 5% of players. Okay? That's where a lot of people get things wrong. That's why we're consistently looking at every week by week tournament, and I go through GT lists as well, not just RTTs, and then look at and just pull a big consensus. Oh, based off math, this is how it did win. No. You can see a lot of people are bringing things out of the box, and you see at an RTT level, they're getting mimicked compared to the GT level, and those are the units that you can say, okay, even in my casual games, these are something that I might want to be considering consistently, such as a war boss with knobs. That's something that I consistently call out, that as soon as I've seen it, I go, that's going to be on almost every competitive list, and it dang right is. Just like the Beast Boss with 10 mans is a pretty common unit. That is too. So keep that up too. Christian, what are you thinking over there? How do you what have you gathered while looking at Orks and something that you worry about maybe as a world leader, even though you get good play into them? And how do you think the community, let's say like our local meta, would react to Orks being introduced? Because we don't have Ork players at any of those events you're talking about.
I think the thing with Orks is that it's one of those armies that's hard to get a general game plan for because you can make such varied lists that they're almost like on a lot of armies you kind of have an idea. You have a picture Marines are going to be desolation squads and tanks, yada yada. But Orks, you still see a bunch of variety in what can be successful. So that makes it hard to plan for and hard to prep for, which is what I like.
Yeah. Okay, this is a question I want to bring up that someone just brought up in the Discord. Not that I'm going to do this too much. But Arch question, Can I transport gas and 2 meganobs in a battle wagon? So guys, we're gonna go over this because this is something I heard brought up before, and I wanted to pull up the actual data sheet and look directly as to why I give my answer, and I want to be accurate. Oh, what the heck? Did John just say that? John, was that you? Is that you in the Discord? Is that your name in Discord, Arch? Oh no, your name is John. So I guess we both read the Discord at the same time, maybe. Huh? Yeah? Is that what just happened? Are we bonding here? Are we on the same gray green skin energy? We're on the same wavelength right here, dude? What's going on? It seems like right now we're just mirroring each other's brains a little bit, huh? So Christian, let's look at these real quick, huh? You do me a favor and pull up the battle wagon. I'm gonna pull up.
What do you mean? For gas?
Yeah.
Gas takes up 18 slots.
Yes. And the meganobs, because even though there's 2 models,
they count as 2 or 3 in the battle wagon.
No, I'm saying gas himself. This is the dispute. Give me a second. Because gas counts as 18. Each meganob counts as
2.
And then gas counts as. So then right there, you would be at 22. The issue is, Chris, that I'll show you right here. When you go to Orks and the point values, and they describe Gaz Magurthraka, they show him as 2 models. But here's the thing, in my opinion.
Oh, yeah, because the Makari.
But here's the thing, in my opinion, guys, right? When it's referring to Gaz on the battle wagon, it says Gaz Thraka. When you see the points, even though it references 2 models, when you're reading it as is raw, it's saying Gaz Thraka, as in the data sheet, counts as 18. Therefore, in my opinion, yes. You put him because Makari does not make that 19. Because already, by how it's being read, how the unit's being identified, how the data sheet's being identified,
it turns 2 to 18.
It turns 2 to 18. It doesn't turn Gaz to 18 and then Makari stacked on as 1. That's not how it's being read. It's specifically saying Gaz, as in Gaz, a data sheet. And then when you read the points PDF, and even though it shows 2 models, it still just says Gaz data sheet. Okay? So as I said, I believe when it's referring to that, it's referring to the data card.
Yes.
The data card is calling the data card 18. Then each meganob counts as 2. Therefore, you still get to the number of 22. So it is very much intended and okay that you run Gaz plus 2 meganobs in your battle wagon. So yes, I agree, and that's what I think it should be. If you want to disagree with me, let's fight. No, I'm just kidding. But yeah, that's my opinion and how I spaced it out and how I thought it out when this question came up. So yeah, and then John says it's because my list has it. Data slate says he counts as 18. Exactly. His data sheet counts as 18, and Makari is a part of that data sheet. So it turns 2 to 18 meganobs. Boom, boom. You're good. Go ahead and do that. Bam, bam. It's not a question no more. And if they want to argue with me about it, maybe we'll make a short out of that little caption. That way you can just send it to someone or throw it at them and say, this is why. It says, let's see what Bruce says.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, exactly. Yep. So this is good. So Bruce, right away, another one of me boys. What's up, Bruce? Whoa! Every time I see the guys that we've been talking to, because guys, this channel's only been around for like 5 weeks, and some of you guys, you can see as I react to the people who were here when it was like 3 people in chat once in a while, and they pop up, and I'm just like, whoa! Just reminded me, and I like all new people too, like John. You're a little bit newer. Warband, Fat Man, a lot of you guys that showed up today, that was pretty awesome. And some of you old knobs like Brandon.
When did you break 300? Did you break it yesterday or today?
When did we break 300 subs? I think we broke it yesterday. Guys, broke it yesterday. So yeah, that's also why, like I said, I'm going to do more GTs. RTTs, prepare for GTs, because I used to play a bit more competitively, and now that we're here on this channel and I want to give you guys quality information, I know that I have to kind of kick it a little more back into that gear, even though I'm not going to strictly be thinking that way. I'm going to be playing the less meta units, the less competitive units for my own sake, for more fun, see how it does, point out their strengths, and then that's how you can kind of weasel them onto a competitive list, because people won't see it coming, just like the killer cams. Nobody's seen that coming. Let's see. Christian, want to read this? Because I feel like you'll read it funny.
I concur. Do you concur? Damn, I should have concurred. Yeah. And I mean, I think one thing too is right after that, Mark says he read it on the Facebook
Let's
post.
see. He goes, I don't believe that's what GW intends though. I think
that's a classic Warhammer problem is what does GW intend and what's written, and it's like it's always there always needs a million clarifications with the hobby. And honestly though, I mean, they never like whenever they refer to something, they always usually refer to data sheets. They don't usually refer to a specific character. They just refer to like data sheets.
Yeah, and he said I read this all as a big argument on Facebook page, by the way. Well, maybe we can edit this into a short, and then you can show it to them. And they can argue with me because, like I said, when we read things, you go by raw, and you also equate it to the data sheet. That's how they first translate it through, right? Because we cannot ascribe intent, right? That goes for in life in general. If you're gonna just be fair in your mind, you don't go, I'm gonna just put the motivation and my intentions over behind you. You're going to read it as is. You're going to say, is this applicable? Does this make sense? Is it realistic? Would GW not want you to put guys with 2 mega nubs in the battle wagon? Right? That's what people start arguing. Is this the intention? Blah, blah, blah.
I mean, 22 is the perfect number for that.
22 is the perfect number
Why not
for this
just
to
call him
coherently
17?
make sense. Not Gaz becoming 19. That's not coherently making sense as to what GW is trying to execute with this game. Just like when people are saying, should they get enhancements on the biker characters? Well, is that what's happening in 40K? Is this congruent? Is this a congruent thought process? Can we at least reasonably deduct some things here?
And then my always fallback is always just ask your TO. Honestly, just ask your TO. And if you're like TOs are already starting in August, they're already signed up for events. So just email a TO a simple question, and they'll be the one to answer it for you. And then it saves you a month's worth of hassle.
That's true. But if you're playing with your friends, remember just do whatever is most you're going to make it a more fun game, right? You're going to explain to him why you think this is correct and how it's not. This isn't like a broken stacking thing. To bring a 185-point transport for an already expensive character. Yeah, guys, we're just trying to play a game here. We don't want to think too hard as to, oh my God, this isn't worded exactly how I want it to be. This is 19 for Gaz. I highly doubt that. And I really think it is intended to have fun. GW hires 3rd graders to write their rules, then tend to have more recess.
Damn, I didn't know they upgraded from 2nd graders.
Well, they upgraded for me because I used to read their rules. So that's why I worked for Awesome in 8th edition, because that's what I did. Just kidding, guys. I made that up. Just in case because I'm illiterate. So, yeah, we're at the 2:30 mark. Those were good follow-up questions and everything, like I said. Thanks for anybody who is new today and some of those guys who popped in for a moment, like WAAAGH, shout out to you, Brandon, Dominic, all you guys, Blake, I seen you in there in the beginning, Channel Point, all you guys, a lot of love to anybody that showed up here, Bruce that participated, John, and feel free, Discord, show us some pictures, let us know how you're doing the RTTs. Remind you guys, I am reading when you guys put these lists out. I don't immediately go and respond because I want the community to all give their responses. If I just go directly talking to people, they're going to think that I'm the authoritative authority on this and talking about it. In reality, I don't want to be seen that way, and that's not really what this is about. This is about our orc community all coming together and having a coherent thought and idea, because orcs are way too many data sheets, way too many style of plays, way too many different collections for one person to say, I'm the authority on this unit, on this profile, on this entire faction. Listen to me because I know them best. No,
I hear you, Mark. I hear you.
We learned this right away, like when Brandon came up on the channel and he played with the triple kill tank list. Very different. So for someone to run out and just be like, no, you can't play mechs, and then he comes out and he stomps everybody with it, that's just another example. So I'm not going to sit here and act like an authority. This is for our community to all talk, bounce ideas based off our ideas, our personal experiences on it, what fits more into our meta, right? Some people have read and they go, oh, I'm playing into Knights again. And then another person on Discord will be like, oh, I played into Knights, And then you guys are constantly going back and forth on what your consistent ideas are against Knights compared to someone like me, who I'm going to have different matchups consistently than some of you. So our opinions will vary and different. It's not that I'm not reading them. I'm totally reading them. If you want my direct comments and feedback, feel free to just @ me or something in the Discord too, and then I'll directly respond to you, right? But I'm not trying to take over the Discord and be the only one talking at everybody, because I like when you guys talk, because you guys give me great ideas, because a lot of you guys think such differently. Do you want to read this thing? Chris?
Yeah, I mean, I answered him already, but yeah, GW is still using Matt Ward, the guy who wrote the old codexes, and because of him, they don't even write the name on the codex anymore.
Because all the flack they got. Yeah, I can understand and see that. Well, at least they're trying, and we'll see how these new changes come out. They hinted at between GW with the pointed like they said they possibly do for GSC. We're not going to be at that, guys. And if you look at our win rate, we're sitting at what they call the Goldilocks zone at like a 53, I think it was, or 54% win rate, the real win rate. So Orks are doing excellent, and I can't think of too many things off the top of my head that are just unplayable other than spamming buggies and a speed walk, right? I've seen people run 2 battle wagons. I've seen people run mobs. I've seen people run beast stagger boys consistently. I've seen people running lutas now, putting them on terrain, overseeing an objective. We see flash kits making multiple appearances last weekend. Kill rigs are still on the table, even though people say they're not. They definitely are, because they're another, well, like I say, another model that does multi-phase capabilities. They're buffing, they're transporting, they're fighting, they're shooting with their psychic. So keep those in mind when you're thinking about Orks. Like, okay, what can I get the most out of these units that are getting better with what I own? I like to prioritize either a specialist unit that's serving a direct role that you need, like a scaffolding knob unit, or the mans that are acting as an infantry unit to hold objectives, or the bikers that are running out and doing things. Or I look at something that goes, hey, cover a broad spectrum of things it wants to do. It wants to shoot and fight. I like that. It wants to transport and shoot. I like that. Stuff like that. So keep those in the back of your minds when you're making these lists. Don't just chase the meta. Don't just chase what you've seen. And understand, the more you know about your meta, your nemesis, your competition, and your local meta, when you see what they consider their example list and what the tournaments are, you'll know in your head what they're most likely to be, right? What they're most likely to bring, because people tend to mimic each other a lot in the competitive play. And then as it kind of trickles down to casual play, people go like, man, I don't know where to go. So they start using another example of a list as a skeleton for their list. John says, I don't feel bad about putting gas in the battle wagon, but I would never put them in a truck, or players should not be doing that. Yeah, someone that we've seen that did very well at a tournament, we brought up a list. I later found out from the Reddit that he did use them in the truck. He did get put gas in the truck. But I believe it's when Eldar was at its peak of brokenness. So what I would say there is, when you do play competitive, top table competitive play, and people are using rules raw, and you kind of know they feel bad, I could see why he did it. And it ultimately comes down to, like Chris said earlier, ask your TO. I don't advise it, especially if you're playing casually or even like an RTT, because it's like you're going to see those people again and play again, and that's not intended. The battle wagon, I can see how you can argue that was intended. The truck, nah, I mean, come on, he's bigger than the truck. I don't know, that's silly. So yeah, that's another good thing to point out. So Chris, is there anything else you want to bring up? Guys, feel free, like I said, jump on that Discord, tell me how you're doing with your events. I'll be back to talk about it on Wednesday when we discuss more of how the Orks did this weekend as a whole, right? We're going to come back on Wednesday to discuss the stats again. We can review maybe somehow my game went if it goes that long, or we'll do that Friday. We'll gather more pictures from the hobby stream. We'll review how my game did. Hopefully have some more shorts we can talk about. As a whole, guys, let's just keep this going. Thank you for bearing with my terrible computer, not being able to bear with some of this with when we were trying to share these things, but I'll just upgrade my computer sooner than later, it seems. And Chris, any last things, as you were the guest today? Thank you for helping with Boxer and Ops.
No, this was fun. I'm definitely gonna do this again.
Oh, and actually, we have someone specifically for Christian as one of the last comments. Bigfoot, I see you in the Discord all the time. Shout out to you. What up, boy? Christian.
So, Grey Knights.
Read the whole thing. Don't summarize it, please.
So what's your opinion on Grey Knights? I saw that we have a really good matchup against them, and my friend plays them. So the thing with Grey Knights is they have very good movement shenanigans, but they don't have anything to capitalize off those movement shenanigans unless they're spamming librarians. So if you're going against Grey Knights, you need to watch out for is their 3-inch deep strike into your back lines, and then after they do that, what they'll do is if you move at all, they'll pull the guy back up for 1 CP, because if a unit moves to the 9, they pull them up. So they kind of hamper your movement by forcing you to either stand still to deal with the brick of a unit, or to just sacrifice movement and just pull you away in different spots. But they don't have many units, so the trick if you want to be Grey Knights is just focus on what unit you think is important and just whittle that down, because if you get the even one unit a turn is enough to kind of hamper Grey Knights by turn 3. Losing 3 units by turn 3 is enough to just take Grey Knights out of the game because they won't have enough units to play the game.
And like you said, they're trying to spread you out with their movement shenanigans. They don't even have the good enough shooting to threaten you in that way. So they're taking these angles, trying to threaten you, and you're like, dude, I have so many units that when I do get to you, you're just conceding the board to me. And then when we do make contact, I'm most likely killing you with something that's not getting an equal point value trade for you. And it's really hampering you, like you said. Once you lose those units as a Grey Knight player, it goes really quickly downhill because they're like an elite Space Marine army without these directly powerful stacking durability traits like Custodes get, right? So once you do make contact with them, you do tend to just tear them apart as one player.
Yeah.
And their small arms fire isn't that threatening. I mean, if you bring bikers, you start bringing bikers, Squig Hog Boys, knobs, and trucks. They can't really pop your trucks reliably. War bosses and small skirmishing units. I mean, the only thing that might be threatened by them are mobs of boys. And even then, if you start teleporting the battlefield, you might be messing with them too, right? I mean, would you like to see a weird boy in that matchup too? Would that bother you? Because, mobs of weird boys, would that be weird? Mobs with weird boys?
I mean, Grey Knights can definitely not screen well because they do not have any extra utility units left over to screen with.
How about flash kits into them boys, huh? Do flash kits do good against Grey Knights?
Strength 6, I mean, their whole army's T5, so Strength 6 is perfect.
I just keep bringing up flash kits, guys, because for several editions, they've been garbage. Even when their clan was good, they were garbage. So, hey, we looked at them a couple times. We looked at them on lists. They keep getting plugged in. They keep doing work. Get your flash kits. Get them painted up. Get them built. Show me on Discord because I ain't seen no flash kits yet other than WAAAGH. That's why I left it on the picture for so long. And Ludas. My Ludas aren't up and running yet, but I'm more likely to use flash kits. I just got to get mine painted because, honestly, I didn't even get mine painted. I'm not even going to lie. I mean, how many of you guys got your flash kits before we painted in this time? Huh? Yeah, that's what I thought. None, if I've been looking at Discord. Just kidding. So, yeah, everybody, we made it a little longer than the time I thought. Thanks for your questions. Yeah, Christian actually plays Grey Knights, so that's why he knows about Grey Knights so exquisitely. That's why I was like, go ahead and bring that up, boy, because we played that matchup before several times. Sometimes Grey Knights, depending on the time, do really good into Orks, like when they have the Dreads Knight spam. But sometimes they just get messed up, like if you're running freebooters, right? So, good question, and that's probably it for the Nemesis talk today, guys. Thank you for being here for the hobby stream. We appreciate everybody that participated. And feel free to reach out to me in Discord, send me questions directly, post more pictures, get that going, and bring up more controversial topics that you want us to directly talk about, like when you guys asked about the battle wagon thing. Because I was aware of that, and I was going to bring that up. Luckily, somebody reminded me in Discord, and then John brought it up again to make sure we double hit that topic. So thanks for that, guys. I really like when you interact, as it's me getting used to dealing with the computer, being used to dealing with streaming, and kind of having a clear mind and thought process. I tend to kind of drop off on some of the minutiae facts and details. That's why it's nice when people kind of remind me, because there's so much info and details of 40K. So when we're having a conversation here, guys, like I said, I'm not the complete total arbiter of truth. I am more like the beacon of the green wall energy, right? I'm sitting here reverberating, and all you guys are being drawn here, but there's war bosses everywhere being drawn here. I'm not the one war boss, right? So everybody gets their opinion in. Everybody has their way of playing. And that's what I really like to see. That's what really makes me like the community. So thank you for being here. But there's one more thing. Don't cross the wall, because we knock your teeth out. He doesn't.
What he said.
He doesn't do that because he's not